It is my distinct honor to introduce our esteemed speaker for today, Ms. Tripti Bhushan. She is a dynamic force in the world of law and academia, contributing significantly to both the spheres. Currently serving as a lecturer at OP Jindal Global Law School and a fellow at the Center for Law and Humanities at Jindal Global University, Ms. Bhushan's academic journey is marked by excellence. She obtained her BA LLB honors degree from Amity University, Lucknow, and furthered her education with LLM from Hidayatullah National Law University, Raipur. Her dedication and passion for teaching and research have earned her recognition, including the Teaching and Research for Intellectual Pursuit, that is the TRIP Fellowship offered by Jindal Global Law School. Ms. Bhushan's teaching expertise is both diverse and extensive, having worked as assistant professor at Kalinga University, Raipur, and as a visiting faculty member at various prestigious institutions, including Indore Law Institute, Arka Jain University, Maharashtra National Law University, Aurangabad, and many more. She has been invited as a resource person to deliver lectures and sessions at various national and international organizations. Her research and publications in prominent journals, both national and international, highlight her contributions to the field of law, including the Daily Guardian, with a particular focus on intellectual property rights and contemporary legal issues. And she has also authored and edited books that serve as valuable resources for the legal community. So today we have the privilege of benefiting from her knowledge and insights in our lecture. And we are excited to welcome Ms. Tripti Bhushan to share her expertise with us. Thank you so much for being here, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Subramaniam, for the very sweet, kind, warm welcome. So I'm really looking forward to give and share a beautiful insight on sports law and business and how it relates to the current scenario. What are the issues? And as sports have been a very wide and broadened subject and area of interest. So I think without much ado, I'll start with my presentation. So as I will be discussing about sports and business. So my the point of coverage that that I'll be discussing in the particular lecture when I talk about sports and business, I will be discussing about various sources of revenue, right? How does the sports industry actually is making out money, right? What are the various sorts of sponsorship that is needed in the sports industry? The various broadcasting rights, how they advertise and how they monetize, what is ticket sales, what is merchandising, what are image rights and endorsement in sports agreement, what is basically player team agreement, and what is basically dispute resolution mechanism for sports person and antitrust laws and competition in the sports industry. So now these are the various categories of topic that I would be discussing further in my lecture for in 1 hour. So let me ask you a very simple question. What is sports? What is sports law? Sports hota kya hai? So now let us everyone just take a minute and understand how often we actually watch sport or listen any sort of sports. हम कितना sports देखते हैं, हम कितना सुनते हैं, right? So whether it can be in person, it can be through TV, or we can hear or listen through radio. So for us, for many of us, sports is love. We love to watch cricket, we love to watch basketball, we love to watch football, right? It's a global word, so there is a good chance sometimes that we never have thought that about the role of money. When we talk about these industries, these sports, we always look into the zone of like how we enjoy, how we love watching cricket, right? I mean, the love for IPL, but we never think of what role does money play in sports, right? Even if we love to watch our favorite team, right? We are watching a favorite team or favorite cricket match, right? We never think about how they are making money, right? How actually the revenue is generated in the sports industry. So now my question to everyone is that, who makes the money? कौन पैसे कमाता है, right? I mean, from where does it actually come from? What are the sources of revenue and how does money impact, right? So now these are the particular line of thought that actually arise when we discuss about sports, when we discuss about the sources of revenues, right? जब हम बात करते हैं sports की, when we'll talk about merchandising, we'll talk about ticket sales, We'll talk about, various other rights that actually the athletes have. We need to understand money plays a great role as well. So when we talk about what is sport, so now sports law relates to the sporting activities in the country. It is a very emerging law that deals with the legal issues and acts of issues of players, so and teams and managers. So what happened when we talk about athletes, when we talk about sports person, right? So now we have certain rights also, that is associated with them. That is basically image rights or endorsement rights in the sports agreement. So now when I talk about the basic first step that is very essential is, it is a player team agreement. What is agreement? We must have studied contract law in our first year or second year of law school. So, and then we know what is agreement, right? When you hire somebody, when a company hire someone, you need to have an agreement, right? When I'm hiring an employee, I need to have a particular agreement so that the basic conditions, the criteria is outset in those agreement, how the company works. So in a similar manner, when I talk about sports and sports industry, player team agreement plays a great role, whether it's any sort of a sport. It can be cricket, it can be, football, it can be hockey, it can be badminton, any sport. So now if I give you a very basic understanding of, the player term agreement, basically in general I could say that a player team agreement and a contract, it actually, provides and actually mentions that for how many years the particular player is gonna play for a particular team. So there are certain standards that is outlined and mentioned in that particular agreement. So now sometimes they may be required to even participate in any team which they like, right? They have the choice, and they are also supposed to actually help their team members in the marketing campaigns or, the media event that is actually happening, you know just to endorsing them. So sometimes in this agreement, in the player team agreement, or what I would say the contract, they also have a provision which talks about, signing the amount, signing the bonus. Now you will be thinking, what is bonus? Right. So bonus is basically an incentive that is basically, I could say, a lump sum payment that is offered as an incentive to join the team. Right. So you would be getting that incentive. Of course, why would a player work? Of course, everybody needs money, right? Nobody would be working for free of cost. So even when those players, they are into a particular team, they get money. They're paid for what they play. Right. So also when a player contracts expires, right? So now these athletes, these players, they are free. They are basically a free agent, which usually means that they can actually sign a contract with any other team. Once the duration is ended or expired with a particular team, now they are free to choose their own new team, their own set of company to work with, right? They're not bounded that, okay, fine. Now you will be, once you have signed the contract, once you have signed the bonus, now throughout the life you would be part of with the one team. No, they're not supposed to do that. They are free, right? So this was a basic understanding before we move ahead. What is player team agreement, or we can say contract? So now I have discussed, I've asked that, who makes the money? Like the question is that from where the money comes in the sports industry. So now when we look for the sources of revenue, we have various sources of revenues. Basically we have merchandising, we have licensing deals. So now what is merchandising? I mean, what is licensing? Why we are studying licensing? I mean, why do we need to understand licensing even when we talk about sports, we talk about industry? So now we know that, now these days sport industry is having a lot of money. They are making a lot of money, but how? So we know that the cricket teams, the professional teams, they make a lot of money by selling their companies. By selling the companies their rights to sell various sort of items with their logos, team, colors, and players. And we are the one who actually buys them. If somebody is giving me a T-shirt, I mean, which has an image of Sachin Tendulkar, or any of the favorite teams of mine, or any of the favorite sportsmen, I would be happy to buy that. Because I feel, no, I should buy that because it's a sort of promotion, right? So why we are getting this option even? So why? Because these sports person, they sell the companies their rights to sell any sort of items, any sort of goods with their logos or team colors or player information or name on the given, particular fanatics, right? Because it shows the fan movement also, right? If I'm a fan of Shah Rukh Khan, right? Let's say if I'm a fan of anybody else, I would buy all those things that is associated with the name of Shah Rukh Khan, right? Let's say if I'm a Harry Potter fan, so I would be happy to buy if I see anything, any diary, any bag which has the name of Daniel Radcliffe. I would be the one to buy that, to purchase it. Why? It's a sort of marketing, right? I'm a fan. I am living my fan moment, right? But how? What is benefit for me? I am just giving money to the particular shop and I'm getting those stuff for me. But again, understand my point. Those companies who have the rights to sell, they are making the profit from the names of the sports person. So now we would, when I'll be discussing about the image rights, the publicity rights, you would have a clearer picture and understand that how actually these works. How are the sports person actually making money and the companies are making money with the name tag of the particular sports person, or using the voice, or using the signature, using the half image. So these are also part of the personality rights when I'll be discussing that. So now when I talk about, you know, revenue and price, so the first thing that comes to my mind is brand. What is brand? Why do I mention the term brand? What is sponsorship? So now these are the basic terminology that you need to understand. How brand is important, why brand matters, what is sponsorship, what is various types of sponsorship. So now if, because I know this sponsorship when it comes to brand and earning revenue, it makes lot of money, because companies, they try to invest and they try to promote their products, or use the brands by acquiring some sort of fame, by selling the jerseys, or by doing this marketing campaigns with a particular team. So now this is how they and all they try to market the particular team. So now again we have advertisement. So why we advertise people? Why we advertise? When you see, when you're watching a cricket match or a football match, you see a lot of ads. Why are these ads coming? Why do you want to see that ads? And why in that particular ad a particular team depiction is there? Why? Because they are marketing, right? They're advertising. They want money, right? So now how? So when we talk about advertisement, we have sponsorships, right? We have jersey sponsorship, we have in-game advertising, we have stadium arena naming rights, we have digital and social media promotion as well. So we know that digital media plays a huge role. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, it's a namesake that actually makes people connected. I mean, you get to know a lot of stuff through these social media sites. So now when I talk about traditional sources of revenue, so you have, again I will be discussing about broadcasting rights towards when I end with my advertisement rights. So now when I talk about jersey sponsorship, so now what is sponsorship, what is jersey? So what happened when we talk about sports, so many of these sports persons, they just actually allow companies to display their logos, right? They allow their logos, the team jersey, and they sell it. And people are happy to buy it. Why? Because this has become a very lucrative source of revenue. I mean, these days for the companies, to brand and to encash the amount, right? Again, we have stadium arena naming rights. So now what is stadium arena naming rights? So now, of course, name is associated with the personality and publicity rights. So now what happened? Sometimes many of these corporations or the big companies, the big tangent companies, they offer substantial amount of money, a very small portion of money, to have their names associated with these venues. Why? Because for them it is like having exposure to the particular brand that can actually cover the cost of maintaining those facilities and providing the best of facilities when you have a match or any game. So that's why how they associate their names with those venues, sports venues, that can be a stadium or a ground. So now again we have digital social media promotion. So now what is digital social media promotion? So as its name signifies, we know that digital media is highly popular, and social media has these days open up a lot of avenues for advertising in any field. But the teams and the athletes, you know which are involved in the sports industry, they have leverage and they endorse their products, right? They enter into the contract, right? That's fine. You can use my name, you can use my image, but only with my consent. So you cannot use anybody's name or voice without the consent. That will infringe. You cannot use my right now if I'm delivering my lecture on sports law and business. So nobody can use my voice, right? Unless I permit them, unless I grant them license. That's fine. You can use my voice, you can use my image or like selling on anything, but once I give them consent, right? That is how it works when it talks about sports business and license. So now again, sponsorship. So now we have discussed about sponsorship. I have given you an idea about like what is sponsorship and what is, basically a brand sponsorship. So now what is the advantages? Like targeted marketing, I mean media exposure. You get a lot of exposure when you market your product. You get involved, you get connected with a lot of people, a lot of companies. Your brand has a vibrant, image. People are aware about your brand, right? When you use those images of a players, right, of a sports person, आपका brand का एक नाम बनता है, right? Why people are, like now these days everybody is, advertising. Virat Kohli is doing an ad. I mean, Anushka Sharma is doing an ad. I mean, a lot of actors are doing ad and they are actually endorsing a product. And we as a customer tend to buy that. Why? If, suppose, let's say a very basic example, I went to a shopkeeper and I have to buy a pen. And the pen cost me 10 rupees. But the pen is totally blank. The pen has no image, no name. It's just a blank, I mean, simple pen, blue ball pen. I might not buy it. I might doubt. I mean, ye chalega bhi nahi chalega, kya bekar pen hai. I might think like that ways. But if, let's say, if on the same pen, there is an image of Sachin Tendulkar or a name written or signature, I might be ready to give 50 bucks to buy that pen, right? This is how they market. This is how they're earning money on the names of these players when we talk about sports industry, right? So understand the difference. The image rights, I mean the voice, the name, the persona, this is a source of revenue for the people, for the companies who are indulged in making profit. And everybody does, but these are the basic revenues. These are the basic models, how they inculcate, how they earn revenue. So now when I talk about, ticket sales, everybody buy tickets. You need to buy tickets. You cannot just went to a cricket ground and just sit there and see the match. You need to have tickets. So now basically, ticket is a very core revenue, generation. It helps a lot in earning a lot of money and profit for sports organization, right? And the management of ticketing rights also involves various, elements like, you should have season ticket. Now you would be asking, ma'am, what is season ticket? What is dynamic prices? What is secondary ticket market? So now these are the elements when we talk about ticket. Of course, when you watch any of your favorite sports, you need to buy ticket. Of course, when you're at your home, when you're watching virtual, you need to buy any ticket. You don't have to buy. You just need to watch, right? You can enjoy the match freely at your pace with your family members, with your friends, etc. So when I talk about season ticket, basically, season ticket actually offers, some sort of packages, I would say. Like when you go on a trip, you have different sort of trip packages, right? Through you can avail by Make My Trip. But when I talk about season ticket, it actually offers ticket packages which allows, various teams to secure revenue in advance and build a base, have a backdrop. That is how season ticket works. So now again, when I talk about marketing, ticket marketing, so how that happens? So what happens, we know that, people often resell the tickets. Let's say there's a match going on in Dharamshala, I mean these days. So now if I have a ticket, I cannot visit Dharamshala because excuse me, because of some of my commitments, some of my work. So I might resell those tickets, right? I might resell those tickets platform that enables to get me some money, you know so this is secondary marketing, which is done by the customer itself. So even, sometimes the teams, they often establish a sort of partnership with any of the platforms, to gain basically control and to have those benefits. So now this is how the ticket marketing happens. how you as a person, as a customer sitting at your house, can resell those tickets and you monetize the money, you get money, and how these players, they involve in partnership and earn the money. So now again we have merchandising, right? So now again, what is merchandising? So now when we talk about merchandising, as a name suggests, it involves some sort of creation and, I could say, sale of sports related products, or we can say apparel. I mean, like, of course, jersey, the bat signed by Sachin Tendulkar or any of the players, right? I mean, kids love Sachin, so people would want to buy those products that have a name or an image or a signature of those players, right? So now again, when you talk about merchandising rights in the sports arena, you have team apparel, you have athlete endorsement. What is endorsement? So now endorsement has a various meanings. So endorsement is also a concept when you have studied, if you have studied NI Act. So you have, when you have studied dishonor of check sometime way back, you must have understood, I mean, the basic concept of endorsement, endorser and endorsee. So in the same manner, we have athlete endorsement here. So now what happened in athlete endorsement? So when I talk about athlete endorsement, so athletes often have some lines of merchandise which range from like shoes or clothing equipment, right? These endorsements can be mutually beneficial for an athlete and a brand, right? Of course, like, a brand will endorse a star, right? Why? Because they have to make a brand. A company has to be in the name fame of the public domain so that people know the brand, right? If today you know Bikaner wale, how do you know? Because of the product, right? You know that, McDonald's, because why people love to go McDonald's? Because it has a brand, right? If you're having if you're getting a normal burger at the street, people would not even offer, I mean, not even try to have it. But if the kid went to McDonald's, if somebody says that this burger is from McDonald's, would you like to have it? People will jump and have it today. Why? Because of the brand, because it has a brand value. So brand value actually plays a very crucial role in terms of earning money, in terms of revenue, right? So now again, when you talk about team wrappers, so it's nothing but it's basically a license merchandise, that includes the clothes basically, or I would say a hat, signed hat, or of course a jacket, or any signed pen, any anything that can attract the customer, attract the fan base, right? And because they love to wear those items, and because it shows certain sort of loyalty and support for their favorite team, right? Because when you go and watch cricket or a basketball match or a football match, you are happy to wear the jerseys of your favorite players, and you stand and you clap in the audiences. Why? Because it shows the amount of trust you have, I mean, the loyalty, I mean, the love for the particular team, for the particular sport. You've been sitting there for an hours and watching that particular sports with out of love. So now, through these costumes, to these apparel, they earn revenue, right? Again, we know that there are a lot of online stores also. I mean, these, when we talk about clothing and brand in the sports industry, you have online stores, of course. So now these days there is a rise of e-commerce, which has made basically very easier for sports organization and companies to sell these merchandise products directly to fans. They just, I would say, cut the middleman and increase profit margins. And it's so easy for them because now, like, everybody, I mean, Salman Khan has his own brand. I mean, like, of course, you are running your online portal, and like, of course, if I am a fan, I can just directly log in and buy my stuff, right? So now the middle, I mean, it has reduced the reach, to actually buy those products that is associated with your particular player, right? So now these things come in sponsorship arena. I mean, of course, when you have a brand value, it will of course benefit you. Right. So now, but also the point that comes to my mind is that we need to manage those things very effectively, right? When we talk about advertisement, we talk about merchandising rights, and it is very essential for everyone because we need to have a financial stability and growth also when we talk about sports. So these are rights. So they not only provide revenue, but they also somewhere generate, or I could say, uh, help to grow or foster engagement because that engagement, when it comes to the brand or the players or the customers, they tend to build up a loyalty, making them a very crucial part of sports, right? Because that will, anybody would love to watch any of your favorite sports while sitting at the home or going to the ground. Why? Because, you know, they have that love. But again, now these companies, these brands, they are not someone, they cannot just offer you thing at free cost. They need to have lucrative sum of money also. So now by using those players' rights, I mean the images, or I mean the voice, the signature or the persona that I will be discussing later on, they are actually monetizing. I mean the people are, of course, when if Virat Kohli is doing an ad, right? So he's also getting money, right? He's not doing it for free of cost. Of course, the brand is there. Of course, it is getting the name fame, but in return, he's also getting revenue. He's also, so it's a mutual understanding, I would say, right? When you agree to enter into a particular contract, right? So now this is all about advantages when we talk about sponsorship. Now, again, one thing that comes is broadcasting and media. So now media is very crucial. I mean, you cannot leave media anywhere. I mean, you all know that. I mean, if our news channels, the portals, the media, the social media platforms, they help us reach out to so many people at large. I would say world at large, right? So when I talk about broadcasting and media rights, I would say that we know that there is sale of broadcasting rights also. I mean, it's a biggest source of revenue these days because they tend to generate a lot of funds that is actually needed to finance any of these sports events, or recreate, or I would say refurbish the stadiums, the cricket grounds. So because they contribute some part, I would say, or they contribute to basically development of these the sports from grassroots level, right? You need money also for, of course, maintaining that particular stadium, that from at place where this event is gonna be organized. So you need to maintain that also. So basically, I would say the royalties that these broadcasters earn these days from selling these exclusive footage to other media houses, or I would say other media outlets, they enable them to invest in a very costly organizational or a very infrastructure bound surroundings where these sports events tend to happen, and there are million of fans across the world, because of course fan is a fan cannot be differentiated. A fan knows the language of love, right? So of course, if anything is coming about anyone, any of the favorite stars or players, they will tend to listen, right? They will discuss about it, right? This is how the fan reacts if anything is ill said about any of the sports person, right? It will bother them somehow. Why? Because they generate that sort of love, loyalty towards their particular sports person, their favorite star. So they will tend to get affected also. So now, how? Because they tend to know these things through media. So now people sell these rights to earn, revenue to generate that amount. So now, again, what is broadcasters' right then? We know that we can sell those rights at the little time, but now ये होती क्या है? What are these basically broadcasters' right? So now, basically, they tend to, reward. I mean, they tend to reward the all the sort of interpersonal or entrepreneurial efforts of any of the organization, and they try to safeguard the interest basically of the person and the investment that they have made in broadcasting any of these sports to channels, or licensing or using TV portals, etc. So also, if I discuss, when we talk about international conventions for protection of performers, or I talk about producers or broadcasting organizations, it is given in the Rome Convention, that is 1961. So that basically talks about broadcasters because they have exclusive right as well, for 20 years, and that which actually authorized them to rebroadcasting. Fixation means basically recording, or to reproduce something, or to communicate that particular thing at large to public. Right. So now we know that there is some sort of agreement that has actually happened. but that the protection of broadcasters' right needs some sort of I won't say it's very rigid, but it needs to accommodate a digital communication platform also, where it is more easier for people to just communicate, right? Because today sports have become a very global phenomenon. It is making a lot of money, and because in the entire world everybody is watching sports, they are in love with sports. So whether it's when I talk about the IPR rights, and or I talk about the sportsmanship, or when I talk about the endorsement, I talk about the media rights, they tend to just indulge, they are interconnected, right? So now when I talk about basically diverse types of sponsorship, right? So now again, when I have discussed about advertisement, ticket sales, merchandising, right? So now these are the types of sponsorship. So now again, the major important concept that comes, and I need to discuss it, it's very important when we talk about endorsement, when we talk about sponsorship. So now we have a concept of image rights, right? Because I have been discussing and saying this word since starting of my presentation, right? I have been uttering this word. So when I talk about image rights and endorsement in sports agreement, so I have discussed earlier what is player agreement or a contract. So now ये image rights क्या होती है, and why are we even discussing about image rights? ठीक है. So now as I said that the companies can't use any individual persona, the voice, the names, just to earn money or gain profit without the permission of a particular star or a sports person. You can't use that, else you will be infringing the rights. So now, for this sake, we have image rights. So what we know that sports is huge. I mean, it's a big bigness in the market these days. So now we know that sports image rights are very valuable asset. It's very it's fairly important, right? Because as I said, I am a professor. I'm speaking something. So now I have my own rights. I won't want that somebody uses my voice for getting benefited at their own call, right? So now I need to give them permission. So I have my own image rights. Somebody can't use my image to sell a cream, right? Unless I give them a permission, I give them consent, right? So now sports image, we know that it's a very valuable asset for us. So now when there is asset, there will be liabilities also. So again, the concept of assets and liabilities, it's a very simple term. I'll make you understand because I'm discussing this. So asset, let's say when I talk about asset क्या होता है? If I say I have a house, if I say I have a laptop, if I say this is my phone, these are my asset. ये मेरा है. I can claim. These are mine. So when I talk about liabilities क्या होती है कि अगर मैंने कुछ बैंक से पैसे लिए और मैंने बैंक से लोन लिया, if I've taken a loan from a bank of let's say 5 lakh rupees, I need to repay them back. So that is my liability because मुझे वो वापस देना है, right? That is my liability. That is how it works. So when I talk about, of course, image rights, so the term image right is basically used to refer a particular individual that has a proprietary rights in their personality, right? And actually ability to exploit and somewhere prevent unauthorized, mark my word, unauthorized third party from making use of any individual's person, including their name, nickname, image, signature, right? They can't use that. So we know that, since a player has, some sort of skill that they are displaying in the market, so no, it's very valuable for them. So now image rights, they can license their rights, but when they consent, so now they have protection, and it's possible through help of IPR, right? So IPR actually comes into picture when we talks about licensing, when we talks about publicity right, when we talks about image rights. So generally, for sports person, or I would say a popular sportsman, they tend to monetize their rights, by entering into various kinds of commercial contract. So now what is commercial contract, right? And why people do commercial contract? To gain profit, right? So now when I talk about commercial contracts, so when I talk about these sports persons, so now these image rights are basically utilized to earn revenue in the sports industry, and revenue, and they're actually brand. So now image rights are utilized to earn revenue of brand endorsement and being the face of sports organization, since these rights carry a very substantial value. So now their protection is very important, right? Because asset, when we talk about asset, anything that is associated with you is very important. You need to protect them, right? So now ownership of image rights always vests with individual and it cannot be transferred, right? So when we talk about ownership, so ownership of image rights always vests with individual. Let's say I have a ownership right, it will vest with me. It cannot be transferred, right? It cannot be transferred. Why? But these players, they have this absolute right. They have, they have the right of their image, and they can only license those image rights to a particular company, or I would say a third party, so that to use their image rights through licensing agreement. So of course, if I have to sell my image, if I am consenting to a particular thing, that okay, fine, I'm okay with if you use my image in marketing something or selling something. I'm okay if you use my image on the jersey, right? I'm happy. So now again, you can't transfer, but you have to license your image rights through a contract, through an agreement. That is how it works. So if we see in India, image are actually called as personality rights. They are not dealt with any sort of independent statute, but we have celebrity rights, right? The concept of celebrity rights. So now we know that sporting industry has grown into such popularity that it has become a very primary sort of platform for commercial advertising and endorsement. People are indulging in these kind of you know engagements with each other, but again, we need to protect these rights. Why? Because if there would be no contract, there would be no consent, it has been a violation, right? So now we know that sports person image rights can only be exploited with his consent, right? Consent only zaruri hai. So now those who freely use a popular, any person who's using a popular athlete image, will essentially be somewhere, infringing upon these rights. As I've discussed earlier, because internet has opened a very broad doorway for violations and and unauthorized usage of image, I mean, of famous personalities. I mean, people try to use images of stars and they try to morph, right, just to encash amount, and this is happening through internet. So now including for the sports person as well. So in this slide, it's become very essential for everyone and for us to ascertain, to understand that how to protect and why this protection of image rights is very important. Right, and everywhere there has a different jurisdiction. So when we talk about UK, I mean, it has been called as right to publicity. So in UK, when we talk about the right, image rights are called as right to publicity. So for enforcing this right in UK, you need to file a civil suit that can be brought before a state or federal court, through a layman act, right? And there were various cases also. So when we talk about basically in India, we call it as a personality rights, which is basically not dealing with any independent statute, but there are certain agreements that come into picture. So basically, these rights of publicity have evolved from the rights of privacy, and they can actually inherit only an individual or indica of a person, to stop using their signature voice, because an individual may acquire the right of publicity by virtue of his association with a particular event, right? Then only you can use those images of those particular sports person. So now this was a brief about image rights and endorsements. I have discussed about player team agreement. So now again, we have mechanism. We have a dispute resolution mechanism of a sports person, right? What is that? There are a lot of issues that happen into sports industry. I mean, like they have doping policies, you have broadcasting rights, you have player rights issues, right? You have harassment issues. So now when you face those sort of issues, what will you do? What you can do? So now again you have ADR mechanism, right? That is just that we call as dispute resolution mechanism. So now ADR mechanism is basically an alternative, process to litigate, right? It makes the work more easier, I would say. It increases the efficacy of dispute resolution. It is done through mediation, negotiation, etc. So now what happened is that arbitration is an out of court settlement that involves an arbitrator or an arbitral tribunal to resolve any sort of conflict that is happening between two parties, and decision of such tribunal is binding on the parties. So now, to settle all this kind of dispute when it arises, even in the sports industry, you could come here. So to settle this dispute to sports, by way of arbitration, there's a special body, that is Code of Arbitration for Sport, that is CAS, we call it CAS, that was established in the year 1984 by the International Olympic Committee in Switzerland. So now basically, what this code do? What is this code of arbitration works for? So now basically, this code of arbitration, for sports, provide a sort of very basic, very neutral platform for resolving sport. It cannot be biased with the party for resolving sports related disputes that is outside national code. So now again, when we have a lot of cases that comes to cash, so now we have ordinary cases as well. So now what is ordinary cases? So now disputes that are arbitrated by a panel of arbitrators, with one arbitrators, sometimes they choose, each party has an option to choose with the list, and the three arbitrators, they are selected by other two arbitrators. So now in the case of cash, sometimes it happens that a single arbitrator can also resolve the dispute if both parties are consented, if they approve it. They need to give the permission, right? So now this is how the cash work, right? Again, we have discussed about sponsorship, we have discussed about broadcasting, right? We've seen about media, we have talked about advertisement, we have talked about jersey rights, we have talked about what is basically broadcasters right, what is team apparel, how this what is merchandising rights, what is dynamic pricings or season tickets. So now again, we have a very again a very important I would say a point to put or a bring on to discuss is like the rights to privacy and publicity. What are the rights that is available for any players, right? What are the various rights that can athlete have? So now we know that right of publicity have evolved from the right of privacy itself, right? So now again, I will say, so these right of publicity, when they evolved, I mean, through the sense of privacy, it can only have the individual indica of a persona of a person, right? So that is something is very important because you need to have protection that I've discussed about image rights also. I mean, now again, that sports have been a field, we all know that it has been a very interesting game, or I would say a area of interest that a lot of people are developing. Even people who are not very interested in watching sports nowadays, they are freely, they're happily loving to watch their favorite sports, basketball, hockey, or cricket. So what happened, when I talk about the right of publicity, so basically it fall in the domain of celebrity rights, right? So again, now you must be thinking, what is celebrity rights? So let me make you understand. So first of all, I mean, the personality rights, they have been never taken as any specific right. It's a part of Article 19 and 21 when you talk about Constitution. I mean, because publicity rights have, never been part of the IPR. I mean, through persons. I mean, where the name and can be saved through copyright or trademark. So, now we know that again, it falls in the domain of celebrity rights. So now, who is the celebrity? Who is a celebrity or a personality? So now we know that we need to understand first ki celebrity hota kya hai. If is is it only a star they can be called a celebrity, or anyone can be said a celebrity, even whether it's an actor or an author or an artist or a YouTuber, or might be a politician, athlete, musician, or anyone. So again, anybody can be said a celebrity, but I mean the public perception is, I mean, very important, because a criteria for determining whether a person is a celebrity or not, because it's us who, kisne bola hame ki Shahrukh Khan is a star? Who said that Virat Kohli is an excellent player? Because it's us, we make them famous, right? Because they play well, and we are developing the fan base. So now is the perception that we have. So now the word celebrity comes from a very Latin word that is called as celebratum. So now again, it's tell us the brief consortium about condition of being famous. So now Again, if you look out the Copyright Act, so it never defines the term celebrity. कहीं भी किसी भी act में आपको the term celebrity is not defined. So, but when we talk about section 2QQ, that talks about performer. The word performer in the Copyright Act, which says that performer is, not always a celebrity, and celebrity may not be a performer at all time. So now, who's a performer? Any person who gives a performance as a singer or a dancer or a player or a footballer actor. So now, what happened when we talk about IP rights in sports? Section 38, of the act gives a very special privilege, I would say, right to all those performers. They have a right to perform or to appear or engage in any of the performance in relation to such performance. They have right till 50 years from the beginning of the calendar from the next following year, which the performance is made. Right. So now this is basically section 38 of the Copyright Act, which talks about performers. So now again, right to privacy. So we have seen in the case Puttaswamy case in the Universal Union of India, Article 19, right, and Article 21. So basically, the rights to publicity actually has originated from the right to privacy, but it has a different stance altogether if I go in detail. So we need to understand the basic idea, the basic right that these athletes have, the basic connotation. I mean, why it is infringement, right? So now we know that a sports personality would definitely, give a very argumentative favor for such rights if it has been violated by any of these stars, right? So even if you are using any star's voice for endorsing money, for encashing money, and to sell your own product, you will be violating the right, because you don't have the permission to do so without without getting the consent, right? So because it is very important, crucial to understand from where this comes, right? Because generally the scenario is that right to publicity is managed by the entire industry, by the team, I mean, that works for the sports personality. There are people who are looking after this. So you need to understand the in and out. So of course, India has been lagging since time, but it's still building up. I mean, it's still recognizing the right to publicity. I mean, the jurisprudential aspect of publicity rights, when you talk about it's somewhere, it's not developed due to lack of any of the rulings still of the Supreme Court, but we are still building on the legislations, right? So now we have covered the basic fundamental of what is publicity rights. So I'll just it was a case law that happened way back. If I remember, that was a case that happened, that was Sonu Nigam versus Amrik Singh. So it was case that was related to defamation and infringement of personality right, that was actually filed by the singer Sonu Nigam against, I mean, Mika. Because in this case, what happened, I mean, the Bombay court basically, they imposed a very very huge amount of fine, saying that no third person should make any commercial profit by using celebrity images, I mean, unless they have consented. That I was discussing, right? So now the court also further observed that imposing heavy fines would act as a deterrent against those who intend to exploit these personality rights of celebrities or the players. So this is how. So now if you are using somebody's images, signatures, voice, you are violating, I mean, you can bring an action. Right. So now there are a lot of cases when you read, you will find. So now again, there have been many cases. I won't go into much detail. And there's also, I remember there's one case that was of Delhi High Court, that is Rajat Sharma versus Ashok Venkataramani. I mean, it talks about the publicity right again, which was over a show of Aapki Adalat that he was, hosting. So it was said that holding an advertisement is a very prima facie illegal. I mean, the court ordered against Z Media to actually stop issuing advertisement in print media which actually contain the name of Rajat Sharma. Right? You can't use that name to defame somebody like that. So the court recognized the Rajat Sharma's right in his public persona that I was talking about, the individual, the indica. Right. So now, as the use of statement in the advertisement amounts to false advertisement, and it actually tarnishes the images of Rajat Sharma. So now this is how you protect. So now, again, the last topic is We have discussed about broadcasting right, we have discussed about advertising, we have discussed about ticket sales, merchandising, I mean Team April, what is athlete endorsement. Now we'll be doing the last topic for the day is antitrust laws and competition in sports industry. So now what does this word antitrust mean? So now the term antitrust basically it's used to describe any sort of contract, or I would say any sort of conspiracy that is illegally restraining a trade and promotes anti-competitive behavior. So basically, they regulate the players, the contract of free agency. I mean, like sports leagues such as NBA, NLB, etc. So now what happened? Basically, I would say these laws they actually protect the market from any kind of distortion, occurring due to corrupt practices that is actually having. So now what happened? It also promotes the competition between the different players in the market in order to benefit the consumers and also economy. Because of course, when somebody is playing against somebody, of course, it's a competition. So we know that sports have become a very global market these days. So with the start of broadcasting technology, sports broadcasting has been turned up into a very lucrative business that they're encashing a lot of amount, they're making a lot of money. Why? Because of this advertisement of deep, pocketed multinational corporations also. But now somewhere, when we talk about the intersection of competition law in the sports arena, it has been witnessed not only in India but in a very broader perspective also in every other countries as well. So there is no specific legislation of sports law that in an era that is covered into contract law, but there are some authorities for sports in India, that is basically Ministry of Youth Affairs or Sports Law and Welfare Association of India, Sports Authority of India, National Sports Federation. So they look after that. So now again there are various issues, that is doping policies, broadcasting rights, IPR, player rights. These are the various issues that fall under the category of the system. So now again, if I discuss a very brief about doping, I mean what is doping issues. So now doping is actually a competitive sport that is referred to usage of performance enhancer drugs, which are basically banned by anti-doping laws of various authorities that you can't actually use. Right. So this is how it works. And antitrust laws are designed to promote competition in the market, right? They play a very huge role in the dynamics of sports of the world, right? I mean, these practices can be subject to antitrust challenges as they may limit sometimes the player's ability to even negotiate fair contracts potentially and to maintain a balance, right? To maintain a balance, to have that fair trust in the market. So, yes, I think I've covered everything. So I would just give a very quick, brief, overview about what I've discussed so far. So we have talked about broadcasting right. We have talked about advertisement. We talked about ticket sales. We talked about how, why management is very important, like in merchandising rights. What is broadcasters right? Like basically why we need media rights. What is media rights basically? And we have also talked about very briefly what is Rome Convention, and I've discussed about antitrust competition, then concept of doping, and then again player team agreement. What is player team agreement? We have discussed that in the very start. That is a very foremost first step, because if I revise back, so basically a player contract provides an basic outline that an athlete will play for a certain amount of time for a particular team. Actually, they also talked about they need to go out for marketing, I mean for campaigns, for media rights. And they have also very important provision in a player contract, that is of signing the bonus that I've discussed about. They need to sign the contract because they need to have incentive also. So when a player contract expires, so an athlete is free to choose their own particular team and they can go and play for the different team as well. So also I've talked about image rights endorsement, that is post agreement, like what is image rights, why image rights are very valuable asset, right? Because we know that image right is used to refer a person or an individual or to prevent any sort of unauthorized use of third parties, right? So yes, I would like to end my presentation for the day. I hope things are clear and everybody enjoyed the clarity. Okay, so you have a question. All these social media fan pages that we have players are all these illegal and against the image rights, right? Because it depends. Now, of course, if you are making an Instagram, page, right, and it is run by through somebody, and they have a lot of people, but they actually it's you can't say completely it's illegal because somewhere they're earning money, but they have been consented, right? Because again, but when we talk about through internet, because when you are actually morphing the images for their own profit, it is illegal, right? When you have, like, I mean, when you talk about pornography, when you talk about these crimes, so if you're using certain image and just displaying in a wrongful website or pasting that into wrongful website with the audio, that is actually illegal, right? And it actually happens. I mean, people don't know that, and that's why you have a lot of recent cases, where, I mean, recently even Daler Mendi has filed the case, so of the namesake and the audio. So if you read down, so anything, you cannot, when you don't have consent, right? When you're a big star, when you're a popular star, so if you have not consented to use your image or your voice, you can't just use it, right? Because you are monetizing by using, the name, the fame, the voice of that particular star, right? That is not allowed. I hope, I think that's clear. And thank you everybody for joining the lecture, from taking out your, I mean, the schedule and with the schedule and time being here.
Thank you so much, Ms. Tripti. I mean, you had also rescheduled your classes for me here, so thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much, Subramaniam. It was a wonderful experience being here at MNLU and just delivering and discussing about the topics. I hope it is beneficial for everyone that I'm able to contribute in a short span of time. So yeah, thank you each one of you being here.
So, thank you so much, Ms. Tripti.
Thank you so much, Subramaniam.
I'm delighted to introduce our distinguished speaker for the Sports Broadcasting in India module in our Sports Law in India certificate course, Ms. Rishika Mendiratta. Ms. Rishika is a seasoned sports and entertainment lawyer with a professional journey that includes work at Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas, one of India's premier law firms. She is deeply passionate about sports law and has furthered her commitment to the field by establishing Khel Adhikar, a blog dedicated to fostering discourse on sports law issues in India. A graduate of Gujarat National Law University, Ms. Rishika brings a wealth of knowledge and practical experience to the course. Her in-house experience has allowed her to actively contribute to the sphere of sports, entertainment, and commerce, making her a valuable resource for our exploration of sports broadcasting in India. We are privileged to have Ms. Rishika Mendiratta share her insights and expertise with us in this course. Thank you so much for joining, Ms. Rishika. So we will begin the lecture.
Thanks a lot, Subramaniam, for the kind words. And thank you all for joining on this session presently on this afternoon. Thank you for hosting this session because, to be honest, we didn't have these sessions when we were kids on a usual basis. And like it's not been long since I've graduated, but even the past 4 years, I've seen a wide increase in the amount of sports law information disbursement which has been happening across. So it's good to see that. I'm sorry, but the screen seems to be stuck at my end. Just give me a minute. Yeah. Just to a request for this session, I will begin with shortly, but this is more so an interactive session. So I would have loved if we were in person, but it can't happen in this virtual environment. But at the same point of time, it will be good if some of you, if feasible, could keep your videos on because it will help to ensure that there is interaction in the session, if feasible. So that is up to the participants. I'll just let you switch on the videos if possible on the session. Otherwise, we can proceed with any which ways. Yeah. So the reason primarily I chose sports broadcasting in India as the topic because Subramaniam was kind enough to give me a very broad array of topics, but I did not know if I would be able to do justice to those topics because while I do have an academic interest in the wide array of topics, there are certain areas wherein when you start working practically, they become a lot more clearer to you. And sports broadcasting is an area I'm privileged to be associated with. And I thought it will be great to share some insights about the same. So I'll just begin with the session. Please feel free to stop me at any point of time or even just share your insights. The first question which I ideally had for the audience was, where do you all watch sports content presently? Which is it TV? Is it OTT? Is it social media? Where do you guys most actively consume sports content. Others says OTT.
Yeah, the
Okay,
chat box is filled with OTT.
OTT. Yeah, I don't think after Geo Cinemas, this IPL stint, anyone's going back to TV ever again. But that's the bit. So just to go and directly, it's great. Everyone watches on OTT just like me. I also don't possess a TV for that matter at this point of time. It's OTT all the way. This wasn't the case a few years back, but again, we all know the OTT boom which has begun of late. So there are three platforms where primarily a user can consume sports content in India. That's TV, as some of you mentioned, OTT, and social media. Over the past few years, the boom of OTT has been enormous. And this has a significant impact on how even rights holders, which are the main entity who let out rights for these various media platforms, are distributing content nowadays. So the boom of OTT is the reason that the right structure in sports and sports media has significantly changed. Now I'll just take a step back and put on this slide as to why are sports matches broadcast in the first place. As you all mentioned that you like watching it on OTT, so the first reason is to cater to sports fans, to ensure that the access to sports is maintained. Because today, if an Australian can watch a World Cup happening in India, this was not possible maybe like 80 years back. The reason this has all happened is because of sports broadcasting. To set some context, why I am actually going into the very reason as to why our sports matches broadcast in the first place is it's enormously significant as to what goes behind the legal and the commercial sphere when any organization, any rights holder, or any media company is granting rights, is taking a sports property on its sports platform. Why does a Sony take Asian Games? Why does a Geo take IPL? Aside, all of this is stemmed in certain basic points as to what are sports matches actually broadcasting, what is the main stakeholder for these audiences. So sports fans is one of the main reasons that these matches are being telecasted. It ensures accessibility. But then why are sports organizations wanting to broadcast these matches? Is it just to cater to fans? uh, so just to pose a question to all of you again, that what do you think? How do sports organizations, which are the main primary body conducting these matches, earning money from for actually conducting these matches? What are the different sources of revenue? If anyone could just take a wild guess. Okay,
So
Advertisement.
giving, uh,
sorry, I see. Yeah, I saw advertisement and I could not hear. Sheetal, did you mention something? Sponsorships.
yeah, the
Okay,
broadcasting rights
correct.
to broad. Yeah.
Perfect. Sponsorships, merchandise, all of you are right. So the main sources of revenue for any sports organization is merchandise, ticketing, broadcast, sponsorships, as you all pointed out, and new revenue streams are being explored day by day, but these stand to be the main. But of all of these, broadcasting, as Sheetal pointed out, what is the biggest source of revenue for any sports organization, that is where the money lies for them to actually take it back, invest it back again for the development of sports, for paying salaries to the athletes. So all of it is embedded in the broadcasting structure of the sports event, which trickles down back to the athletes and the governance and the organization of sports. That is why sports broadcast is the most commercially impacted sphere in the entire sporting ecosystem. Now, this is the reason why sports governing organizations are broadcasting the matches. There's one question I've not put in here, but why are media companies taking rights to these matches? Why does a Sony want to show Asian Games? Why does a Geo want to show IPL? The reason for this is eyeballs. So the maximum eyeballs, the maximum audience reach of any content in the world is of sports. So that's the reason sports broadcasting as such is important from a holistic and all the stakeholders point of view, because sports fans want to consume it. because of their interest. Sports organizations want to ensure a steady revenue stream, which they can be guaranteed money in respect of which. And the sports media companies are buying it because it ensures maximum coverage. So that's the reason that why sports matches are being broadcasted. Again, the reason for me to start off this by this very aspect was to understand what goes behind right agreements. Any commercial agreement is basically the balance of stakeholder interest of media companies, of sports governing organizations, and sports fans. So prior to I became involved in the sports industry, and even prior to that, when I was in law school and just becoming a lawyer, through my internships, I was usually given this advice that law does not work in isolation. Depending on the sector you are in, you have to work in tandem with that sector. Sports law, to be honest, is not different from law, as we all know. It's just the application of legal principles in the industry of sports. More so, sports broadcasting, the topic which we are addressing in this section, pertains to the business of sports. So it is deeply intertwined with the principles of sports. You can be a good lawyer in isolation. You cannot be a good in house lawyer or a lawyer sort of doing broadcasting agreements if we are completely isolated from the business and how it works. So these three aspects, once we understand that why does a sports fan want to watch matches, why does a sports governing organization wants to give out rights, and why do sports media companies want to acquire rights, it becomes easier for us to work on any agreements which as lawyers we primarily would do when it becomes when we try to be involved in the legal industry and sports in its intersection. So it's very important to understand each, like this basic just clears itself out in terms of whenever we are reading any broadcasting agreement. That is what we as lawyers would do when we start working in the industry. Please let me know if you have any questions in terms of any of the three stakeholders, the media companies, the governing organizations, or the sports fans and their interest in watching the in the consumption in the distribution of sports. I'll delve right into broadcast agreements, which is the bread and butter of sports and broadcasting industries. But when we have set the base that today OTT platforms are the most prominent platforms which end up being uh, preferred by the users for the dissemination of content. When we have also looked at the different reasons for different entities to enter into broadcast agreements, I'll just give you a brief first structural glance of how the main points for a lawyer for a sports or broadcast agreement would look like. First is scope and extent. Why do I say so? For example, today when the IPL was being run, Geo was broadcasting the matches on like on the Geo Cinema platform, and Star Sports was showing it on TV. This is a legal structure which they came out with, wherein both the entities had different scope for their rights. So this is one of the main agreements for any broadcast from any broadcaster's perspective. This is where even their revenue streams. So the previous point which we were discussing about as to what does the sports organization say? It's to earn revenue. Previously, we all watched IPL on Setmax. That was it. There were no movies shown at that point of time. Sony was the end all and be all of IPL. And that was BCCI's main revenue source. But going ahead, now BCCI, for example, today has two revenue sources for the broadcast rights, which were the most expensive ones, both from Jio and from Star, both from the TV platform and the OTT platform. So this is a significant way of right structuring for the broadcaster's point of view. And multiplicity of platforms helps them now. It may not be very good for the users because for each particular sports they have to look at different platforms. Although Jio has acquired most of them any which ways now, but in the events, that is why the scope is very important. That is why understanding why the scope is narrowing down for the broadcast agreements is also helpful. What I mean by the extent of broadcast agreements now is the territory. So today we are all situated in India and we are all watching the match in India. So for us, this territory is important. But IPL is also being watched in England because it has players from across the world. IPL is also being watched in Australia, in US for that matter. And Geo is not showing it across the world for that matter. Therefore, BCCI has either sold it directly or indirectly to broadcasters all over the world. So the revenue stream one needs to understand is massive, not only because of the money it attracts in a particular territory, but what it attracts across the world. So this is one of the key points in any commercial negotiation or any broadcast negotiation for that matter in the world of sports, where parties strategically negotiate as to what territory they want the rights for and what period they want the rights for and what platforms they want the rights for. As a lawyer, it becomes extremely important for us while drafting and while discussing to understand the scope and extent of the agreement. That's where, and everything stems from the basic understanding of what all the different stakeholders want. Today, as a lawyer, if I feel, because we would advise in houses, we would read the agreements that we should take worldwide territory. That would not be the suggestion you can actually give when you understand how the rights flow grant is structuring. So, everything in case of any basic question will always boil down to matching and making an equilibrium of different stakeholder interests. I'll continue, but I'll again take a pause and request that if you have questions at any point of time, because there are specifics in a broadcast agreement as it is, you can please stop and let me know, or even if you are jumping guns and you feel that if there's anything not clear or have a doubt. Now, secondly, just to understand the exercise of the rights, like today, as we were mentioning, sports broadcast rights are the most expensive property in the entire world. That companies spend millions acquiring rights for an India Pakistan match. How are they earning money for it? Like, for, and this again is a crucial point because this is a part of understanding that when a company is negotiating the acquisition of any sort of sports property, what do they get in return? Would anyone want to take a guess in the chats? Like, how is the media company earning money after acquiring the rights and showcasing it to the distributors?
Is it the advertisements?
Perfect. One of the streams is certainly advertisements.
Number of viewers.
Perfect. It's linked to yeah, definitively. Subscriptions, Adarsh is perfectly right again. Correct. Sure. So I think you have given all the answers. It's primarily advertisements and subscriptions. Viewers who gave the answer perfectly right. It's linked to subscribers and advertisements in its own ways. So there are two revenue streams, and the technical terminology which is used in the broadcasting world in respect of these two streams is AVOD and SVOD. One is advertising video on demand, and the other is subscriber video on demand. The reason this is important is these are sometimes some sports organizations tell you how to exercise these rights. Can you run ads? Can you actually ask subscribers to pay for the content you are showing on the platform? Can be the scenarios which a broadcaster negotiates when they are acquiring rights for in respect with any sports organization. And for example, when Jio gave the IPL for free, it was still earning revenue by way of advertisements. It was an AVOD model out and out, which Star Sports, again, in respect of Hotstar, is now having for the World Cup. It's only an AVOD model. In terms of most other sports properties, we all pay for separate sports packages. We all pay the TV packages, the channel packages. So, all are those subscriber based revenue streams. But these are all very minuscule compared to what a broadcaster spends on acquisition of a sports property. So technically, that is again something, if you would say monetization is linked to the scope and extent of the agreement. The reason for this is today, no main sport has broadcaster for 1 year. Like today, if Geo has gotten rights for IPL, it has gotten for 5 years. ICC rights are with Star for 5 years. Why are the rights given out for multiple years? Why are they not given out for 1 year? Why are they given out for like a 5 rights period cycle only? The reason for this, for like a business perspective for this is when you invest in a particular sports property, you've given so much money that for in terms of ensuring its return on investment, you need to have rights for a longer period. Because first year, for example, Jio has given IPL for free, but the subscriber base it earned was huge, and it will be able to capitalize on this base only in the upcoming years. So that is why the way a rights monetization is structured in the agreement and linked to the extent and scope of rights. Giving IPL, if it had rights for only 1 year, would not add value to Geo. It would just earn subscribers and then leave it at that point of time. It would not be able to invest in a sport it had invested so much and gathered users for. So that is why in any broadcast agreement, scope and extent and monetization are deeply linked and becomes important for a lawyer when they are drafting slash reviewing any broadcast document. Now I'll introduce to a very industry specific term. It's called MBO, minimum broadcast obligation. All of us as sports fans like watching matches. What if tomorrow the India Pakistan match was not streamed? We would get angry because none of us are getting tickets any which ways. The reason why minimum broadcast obligations are important in any broadcast agreement is once any entity takes the rights, it's mandated to show the match in a certain territory, in a certain platform. Like today, most of us watch or consume sports content on the OTT platforms. Therefore, it would be mandated at times by the governing organization slash licensors that you need to ensure that you are broadcasting and showing each match on the OTT platform. Otherwise, it would end up being a material breach by them. So that is the reason how minimum broadcast obligations is one of the primary obligations for a media company in any agreement. Now, we can talk about exclusivity because again, it's linked to the scope and extent of the rights. Today, would you say that IPL streaming was exclusive by Geo? If you could give a yes or no answer in the chat box. Shahid says yes. I'll just continue that Shahid is absolutely right. It was exclusive, but exclusive only for a particular platform, that is the OTT medium. It was exclusive for Star by the TV medium. So again, exclusivity plays a very important role, but I'm not sure if you have at times watched. Correct. OTT and TV were completely different. They were therefore exclusivity was platform based. It was Blaze for TV, it was Star for Geo, or for OTT, it was Geo. There could not be cross utilization of rights across platforms by any of those entities. But there are certain tournaments which are available across multiple platforms, wherein it's not exclusive. It's ideally non-exclusive. And this again is a very important point for any lawyer in terms of scope and extent of the agreement. I'm not sure if you would have watched some tier 2 content, but tier 2 content in sports is usually available at multiple places across the platform because in those cases, the revenues are such that it's split across multiple partners. So every time sports content may not be exclusive to a party, but it is one of the biggest factors in terms of ensuring exclusivity. I would say that in terms of like IPL is a tier 1 content, that would just be anything which is. Sorry, who was this question for? I can't see the chat box here.
It was for you only.
Yeah. So it's just like a random structuring, like in terms of Ranji, it would be a tier 2 in terms of my classification. Basic like domestic cricket versus international cricket is how I would look at it. But sometimes content is tier 1, tier 2, depending on what a broadcaster would look at from a perspective.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Then, in terms of breaches and force majeure, I'll just bring the topic of force majeure because all of us knew when pandemic came in, force majeure was a very hot topic in terms of various properties. There's a question which I see. You can SLs. You can just tell me your question. I'll wait.
I have a question. So when we add this exclusivity clause in the contract in our agreement, so does it like does that have anything to do with the competition law?
It does. Good question. May I know your name?
Yeah, my name is Chandrika.
Hi, Chandrika. So definitely, it does have its roots in the competition law. Even the bouquet of rights, for that matter, that is OTT, whether the OTT or the TV platform, has its roots in the competition law. I'll just take a minute. Yeah, yeah. Has its roots in the competition law. So if you see, the rights are never granted for like 20 years. IPL is not granting rights for 20 years, it's granting rights for 5 years. Like BCCI is not granting it for 20 years. This is to ensure that exclusivity is there, but not for an inane amount of time, so as to ensure that there is a monopoly which is created, but at the same point of time, exclusivity is required for any business, so as to ensure it can get return on investment. So it has its roots in the competition law. It is required to ensure that exclusivity is thinly balanced with ensuring there is no monopolization, which goes against the principles of competition law.
Okay, thank you.
There's another question, comment which mentioned about, I think, IPL. If you can let me know your question, I just saw it in the chat box. I can't see it on share screen for some reason. Yeah, correct. It
Yuvraj's
is.
question.
Yeah, hi Yuvraj. I saw your question, which when you mentioned that exclusivity is also jurisdictional in terms of viewership and specific content, you're absolutely right. So, as we were discussing in the previous slide, which talked about extent and scope, it depends on the territory you have rights for, the jurisdiction which you have rights for. Geo would be exclusive for India in terms of OTT, but it would be a different platform, say Willow TV in US, which would be having exclusivity. So definitively, exclusivity varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, platform to platform. Yeah. So moving on to the topic of force majeure, which we were all at. So in terms when COVID came in, all sports activities came to a standstill. IPL also got postponed, and it happened in two tranches at that point of time. So all of this was a force majeure situation. Post COVID, in contracts in general, and all lawyers would agree for that, force majeure clauses are the most carefully looked clauses because the pandemic has made us all stricter in terms of our approach while drafting any force majeure clause. What can be a force majeure scenario in a sports event? If any one of you care to venture a guess, it will be good to know.
Bad weather.
Yes.
Okay, definitively. Yeah. So bad weather is certainly one of the clauses wherein it starts raining, match abandoned. In case of cricket, it happens quite often, and also for other sports that there's no match which is happening. Pandemic, we all know of. What if there's an internet shutdown? The match is happening, but you can't see it. It's a force majeure event for a broadcasters and a sports organizers point of view because despite everything in the match being conducted, it can't be distributed. So access is cut off. That can also be a force majeure event. So the thing and the beautiful part about a force majeure clause is you can account for something, but you can never account for everything. So the reason why it becomes important in sports is that broadcast, it's the most highly valued content as we all discussed in the initial part of the discussion. So what would you want to protect yourself against when a force majeure scenario arises if you're a sports organizer and if you're a media company? Completely varies. Definitively, because a sports organizer has granted rights for, they would not want to lose the revenue stream. But what would a media company be paying for if there are no matches being conducted in the first place? So these are the thin scenarios which one needs to negotiate and account for the best possible scenario based on the commercial discussion between the parties. But a force majeure clause is a definite and a must have in any sports agreement for that matter, like a sports broadcast agreement, and should carefully also lay down the scenarios of what would happen if a force majeure occurs. It can't just be stoppage of the performance of responsibilities because each party needs to be protected commercially also. in addition to being protected legally in terms of performance of their obligations. So this is why a force majeure clause is one of the most important clauses in a broadcast agreement. I have another question for you. Oh, there's a question which mentioned, I think I've missed a few. Yeah, the strike which happened in the 93 World Cup would be considered a force majeure scenario. The change of one player being affected with the pandemic will not count as a force majeure scenario. The reason for this is it does not stop the event from being conducted. If an entire team or a couple of teams are impacted with COVID and the league and the number of matches get reduced, then it could be a force majeure scenario. It depends on the extent, and because it's technically like a player getting injured on a parity basis and not being able to make it to the team. So it has to impact the league in entirety from an event's perspective for it to be considered a force majeure event and not individual. Yeah, the terrorist attack will come under force majeure in the individual story. If it's a final, okay. So if it's a final and there's suppose a walkover because the player person's injured, it could count as a force majeure for sure, but the event will be governed by the rules of play. Like for a tennis, the walkover will result in the other person being actually winning the match. In a cricket, if there is like a team which can't make it, there could be a reserve day. Or if there is if there's a rain abandoned match, there could be a reserve day. So if there are reserve days, if there are reserve scenarios, definitely it would not count as force majeure. For that matter, this time's Asia Cup India Pakistan match, it got rained out. It was force majeure. The next day it started again because there was a reserve day and the match happened and India won. So technically it depends when a situation is a force majeure or not, depending on individualistic interpretation of events and the scenarios we have accommodated the same for. Correct. I will take the SLC as the antitrust aspect a little later because we just addressed it in the scope, extent, and exclusivity point of view and move on to the other part pertaining to breaches. So, what happens when, suppose, an company decides that they will not broadcast the matches that they have taken the rights for, but tomorrow uh, just take a very hypothetical example. Hotstar decides to show it decides it will not show India Pakistan match. The users have already subscribed for it. ICC will face a backlash. Indian fans will go in a deep frenzy. So there needs to be certain mitigative measures as to what happens when that happens. There could be a scenario Hotstar just goes down. It can't. It's a force majeure scenario for Hotstar. So in these scenarios, there are mitigative measures which one would build in an agreement. ICC would say that if you cannot broadcast a match, we'll show it on YouTube. We'll show it on ICC TV. We'll show it on our platforms. Because at times, the interest of the sports fans, as we discussed in the initial bit, is of prime importance also compared to the other interest. So in that particular day, if anything goes wrong, why, like we all know of events of national importance, DD shows all the India matches. It will show all the ICC important matches. This is because it's deeply significant for that match to reach the audiences, in addition to it being a commercially important event for any organizer or a media company. So the balance of interest has to be clearly laid down in an agreement and the mitigation measures then accordingly accounted for. Uh, I think mitigation enforcement is on the same lines. Dispute resolution is highly legal. I will not take it at this present moment because it's just technically in any agreement for that matter. And this is not specific to sports. You will always want to account as to how do you resolve disputes for. As a lawyer, that becomes one of the primary clauses for us. What if there's a dispute between a sports organizer and media company? First, you end up taking mitigative measures, deciding which tribunal, which governing law should be there in an agreement, and choosing your dispute resolution forums appropriately. But this is not specific in terms of a sports agreement, any commercial contract for that matter will require you to draft dispute resolution clauses properly. But the sports one in particular would require that there are mitigative measures properly built in because for every breach, even a bigger one, going to court directly is not the best scenario. because there are interests of various stakeholders involved, which are public facing. Because sports fans are the main reason, are one of the main reasons because of which sports matches are being broadcasted. So no one would want to hinder their experience at that point of time. So that is why mitigative measures, both in case of force majeure slash breaches, is very important in any broadcast agreement in sports. It would definitely come under force majeure if it can't be broadcast. And then thankfully now we have OTT platforms and YouTube where people can just put it on the internet and ensure that the stream is actually put live for the viewers as such. At that point of time, Indians would be deprived and not being able to watch, or like Zimbabweans would be declined and not being able to watch a match. Fantastic. So this is my last slide, and post that we'll put it again for questions. I just want to ask a simple yes or no can suffice. We all know piracy is wrong, and but still it's rampant. Have any of you guys tried watching sports content on pirated platforms or not on the platforms where it is shown? I don't think people no. Everyone's thanks. It just the answer speaks for itself. Like most football content at times, as far as I know from my friends and colleagues, at times being shown a lot on pirated platforms. For that matter, even cricket. The thing is, piracy is rampant with content. Today, I know it for a fact that with the advent of social media, primarily Telegram, everyone knows how rampant piracy is. So, this is the bane of sports broadcasting. Like when you spend millions and millions, or when you spend an amount which is exorbitant on acquiring any sports properties, and someone ends up watching it on a platform which is not being accounted for, it kills both the sports organizers' revenue and the media companies' revenue. There is no question of it being good or bad, but the point is it's extremely relevant. Like for any sports event, the amount of piracy which happens today, clips circulating on Twitter, matches being shown live on YouTube, and this is being handled. Like there is a reactive measure to it. So, does anyone want to venture a guess as to how sports piracy is curbed? Like, what are the measures taken to ensure live sports are prevented from being broadcast on illegal channels and platforms?
Uh, Ma'am, first of all, the websites are shut down, and there are also piracy controls. That if a website has been showing or live casting content for more than 10 seconds, then that is being shut down. Even for Instagram, when we go to movies or something, where we just, if you put a video of a movie for more than 10 seconds, that story itself gets down. So that's one of major internet controls that have been increasing in day by day. Also, many times in the earlier days, cops itself used to go and turn down the dishes which used to sell it illegally.
Correct. Thanks, Mukul. Yeah. So you're absolutely right that in the case of where television was very prominent, cops used to go and also arrest people in terms of cable TV operators who were pirating the content which they were not to distribute. Piracy reporting definitively on social media and other intermediary platforms is a major scenario. But the one aspect with it is that, as you mentioned, some clips are taken down within few seconds of they being uploaded. That does not happen on all the platforms. And usually, the time of reporting and the time of takedown, there is some time lag. It does not happen immediately. It could take few seconds. It could take an hour. It could take 30 minutes. And that is quite important in time-sensitive sports and the shorter versions of the game. So piracy, and there are certain apps, for example, if there is a pirated app on which a match is being shown, you can't take it down. If there is a website where it is being shown, you can't take it down because taking down and piracy reporting only works for anything which is on the social media, which are intermediary platforms like Telegram, Instagram, YouTube, but it does not work for a pirated website or an app. There could be in future use of AI by platforms to monitor and it will be great to see how that works. Presently, in my experience, we have not been able to utilize AI. There are very few pirate. I would defer on that point, right? There are innumerable pirated apps which are there right now, and why the reason for this is, and how as sports property acquirers take like tend to handle them is via even court orders. So as all of you mentioned, all of those are reactive measures. When we get to know a platform, we'll have to report it, take it down. But before a sports event begins, that you will see multiple companies, like for this matter, before the World Cup started, ICC took Hotstar and Star took it. Before that, for IPL, Geo Cinema took it. They take injunction orders called as John Doe orders from the courts to ensure that whatever pirated sites who have already a history of broadcasting such content against which data is available are taken down, and dynamic injunctions are granted so that as and when these sites are found, they can be reported and taken down by the court orders. Because websites can only be taken down by Department of Telecommunications order to domain registrar slash websites to take them down. So the amount of effort which goes in combating sports piracy is also huge, along with acquiring it. So that's the, and thankfully now, even when, but the sports platforms are providing content at very minuscule prices, so much so as free. But even then, piracy becomes rampant because, like any bad thing, it's sort of a habitual thing which people undertake rather than even related to commercial reasons at times. So piracy is a thing which is like a menace, which will continue to be a problem which the sports industry faces for quite a bit as of now. Let's see if the suggestion of usage of AI and stoppage of such pirated streams becomes a reality. It would greatly benefit sports platforms and the organizers. The multiplicity of platforms is actually not something which the organizer or the media companies are facing. This is a problem which the users in general are facing. That today, if I want to watch Asian Games, I had to go to Sony. For IPL, I had to go to Jio. For others, like for Star, I'll go for the ICC World Cup. At a point of time that it was all fine, we would primarily go to Star and Sony only. But the platforms have become multiple. This is both a problem and an advantage, as someone was mentioning about antitrust laws when it comes to broadcasting sphere. Multiplicity ensures there is no monopoly, there is competition in the market, and therefore the competition principles are sort of maintained. But from a user centric point of view, it sort of becomes a problem. But I don't think for long that will remain, considering Geo is monopolizing the market. But presently, more multiplicity is a user facing problem, but piracy is a problem which faces everyone. So that's it in terms of what sports broadcasting agreements and the current challenges of the industry are. You can put in any questions you feel that you would want to ask me. And in general, if anything about sports broadcasting comes to your mind apart from even agreements, it will be good to know.
Ma'am, is there any amount which is given to Government of India also, when this broadcasting agreements are there? Or is it only the BCCI which will be getting, the revenue?
Good question, Sheetal. So, not the government of India in terms of all events. So, for example, there are events of national importance, and the Sports Broadcasting Act, which is there to ensure that the events are mandatorily shared with Prasar Bharati, requires like a revenue sharing arrangement which happens with Prasar Bharati for the carriage of that content, which is a mandated law. So only for those events, but for all other events like your IPL, etc., which are not event of national importance presently notified by the government, the revenue entirely goes to BCCI.
That's not a good thing, right, ma'am? Because there's so much of revenue or there's so much of big money in IPLs.
Good, a valid point. There was a suggestion which was previously, I think, some years back, which was made by which was made by Saurabh Ganguly at that point of time, as to ensure that it is notified as an event of national importance. But at the same point of time, this is also a private league which is developed by BCCI, and the money. So if you look at the revenue sharing arrangement, who gets, how is the revenue distributed? It is amongst the franchises which constitute the IPL, which again goes back to the player development. So one needs to see of how much it's actually being profitable to just BCCI for reasons unaccounted for, and how much is again trickling down to the teams and the players. BCCI definitively does make a lot of money, but at the same time, they have a revenue sharing arrangement, which is the premise of it being flowing back to the players and the teams.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good
Can
evening,
Just
ma'am.
a recommendation to the participants. It would be really nice if you could turn on your videos while asking the questions. Thank you.
I would have loved if you had kept your video on through the session, but that's way past now. Yeah. Um, Sorry, there was someone asking a question, Anya, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, the question I had was basically I wanted your views on a particular topic. So F1, Formula One as a sport used to, broadcast its races on all your Star Sports channels as well as Disney Plus Hotstar. However, this season they decided to have something as F1 TV, and the subscription rates for that are on the higher side, so it has lowered their viewership.
Mm.
When F1 as a sports gets sponsors, what sponsors look for is viewership because that's how they earn money. What would be your views on how it is going to impact the sponsorship F1 gets as a whole because of, the whole viewership being reduced because of them not broadcasting the sport on platforms that are much more easily available to people to watch the sport?
Thanks, Anya. That's a good question. Definitively, your viewpoint and logic is completely right that more the money, the more attraction to sponsorship. That is why we have so many brands running behind IPL to ensure that they are sponsors of that and spend big bucks for the same. But it also depends of who the sponsors are for that event. When you mentioned F1 TV is the one which is broadcasting the races in India presently, there would be a two-layered answer to this. Firstly, is it only in India where F1 TV is showing or all across? If it's only in India but not other markets where viewership has lowered, F1 would end up garnering sponsors which are more prominent in other markets. Taking a different example just to ensure an analogous view would be, say, baseball. People don't watch baseball in India that much. So baseball will primarily have maybe US as their sponsor, US brands as their sponsor. For them, how it is being shown in India would not matter because their major eyeballs are being garnered in a different market. Same would also go for F1 for that matter. Secondly, when you do mention about the eyeballs being gathered, generally that's a correct correlation. You will only broadcast it when you want to ensure your presence in a territory where the event is more popular. We don't see to like non-Indian brands or brands which are not available in India being broadcast even for a cricket tournament. So that's where the correlation lies. I'm not
Okay,
sure.
thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah. Can you explain your role as a sports broadcast lawyer? My role as a sports broadcast lawyer is technically day in and day out of everything which I explained to you, of doing these agreements, vetting these agreements. And I am presently doing more than sports broadcast, so it's technically in-house advisory generally on corporate sports and other aspects conduct like being a part of our industry. The second is a statement I'm guessing by Yuvraj. The most okay, thank you, Anil. Career as a sports lawyer in the discussed area. How to develop your career as a sports lawyer in the discussed areas is a good question. I stumbled upon it by accident. I am guessing there are multiple avenues presently, so it would depend on which stage of your career you are at this point of time. If you are a student, I would suggest reading a lot about sports broadcasting on blogs, writing about it, and as you go in go further in your career, you could intern with lawyers who are working on sport broadcasting matters. But basically, all the companies which are acquiring media content would be also a good place to work with because they would have lawyers working with them. Also, any law firms, there are loads of law firms which assist these companies in the acquisition of sports rights. So the route would be either to work as a law firm lawyer or an in-house lawyer. But the precursor to that would be to just be a good lawyer because what all principles today we apply in a sports broadcasting contract are generally just commercial contract principles. Force majeure principles will not differ for a sports lawyer or a general commercial corporate lawyer. So that is the advice which was given to me when I was in law school, that become a lawyer first, then a good lawyer. Sports law will just be something you will end up practicing by passion, but it's not separate from being a lawyer. Uh,
Thank you, ma'am.
Jayant, I'll skip your question just because we may catch up on a separate time on that. May you share? I'll try for the draft. Yeah, that is it. Any further question? But for I'll just share my details with Subramaniam so we can have a chat separately on any questions or certain advice. I'm constrained by certain company norms, so sharing of certain information slash draft and agreements would be beyond the scope of my engagement. I'm sorry for that, but as a professional, we are bound by certain limitations. But would be happy to discuss and take it forward. A general question, would love to know your viewpoint on the current employment. You are right that when it comes to being involved as a core professional just in the sports industry, the opportunities are limited because of the niche and the nascent market we are in. And for that matter, like even as a lawyer, you would enjoy working in diverse areas. So sports today, the fun part is being in an environment which caters to sports. But as a lawyer, as I would reiterate, the role doesn't change. So when you look for opportunities, maybe look for opportunities in areas which, as a lawyer, you could apply in the field of sports, even in general. And rather than industry specific opportunities, because that may be few. But for example, if you are an athlete management agency, you learn to work on endorsement agreements, you learn on player image rights issues, and that you could apply later maybe in a separate sphere if you end up working in a sports organization. So learn. So if you even specialize in IP laws, which is one of the most important and bread and butter of the entire scenario of how IP is dealt with by sports organizations and the private parties, you could become an expert later on and apply your skills. So I would recommend that developing your expertise and niche academically first by reading on certain areas of law, and keep on, even if you don't get an opportunity immediately. That is what I would do when I was a student in and work and studying in law college. I would try to apply each principle I studied in law school, be it a contract like a non-compete clause. How does it work in sports? There are several places, even for Zahir Khan, etc., where non-compete was an issue. So it becomes interesting to read about it separately and ensure that you are applying in each case. And when the time comes to apply, you may apply. So that would be my advice. Just do your back reading at each point of time, and the opportunities will quickly trickle in and become more. We have a lot of private industries and leagues. There are so many leagues in cricket, and people need lawyers for teams, for athletes, which end up becoming even a good sphere for lawyers to be employed in.
Thank you, ma'am.
A heartfelt thanks to our distinguished speaker, Ms. Rishika Mendiratta, for your enlightening lecture on sports broadcasting in India. You expertly navigated the complexities of sport broadcast and streaming platforms, and you provided a comprehensive overview of broadcast agreements and addressed the significant challenges that are prevailing in the field, including the multiplicity of platforms and privacy, and so on and so forth. So your insights have enriched our understanding of this crucial aspects of sports law, and we are truly grateful for your contributions. Thank you so much, Ms. Rishika, for your valuable and informative sessions. We look forward to collaborating with you in the future as well. I hope the participants also would agree with me. So thank you so much for the great session, Ms. Rishika.
Thanks a ton for giving me this opportunity. Hope to interact with all you guys further as and when you get a chance. And please keep your interest in sports law and keep reading, writing, and studying on it. Thanks a ton. I'll take leave. Bye bye.
Yes, thank you so much. It is with great pleasure that I introduce our distinguished speaker for the Sports and Intellectual Property Law module in our Sports Law in India certificate course. Our speaker, an esteemed assistant professor at Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai, Professor Sajid Sheikh, brings a wealth of expertise in the field of intellectual property rights. He obtained his LLM honors specializing in intellectual property rights from National Law University, Jodhpur, and is currently pursuing his PhD at Nalsa University of Law, Hyderabad. His impressive contributions to various law journals are a testament to his profound knowledge and dedication to legal scholarship. His focus areas include intellectual property rights and women in law, reflecting his commitment to vital issues in the legal domain. Beyond his academic role, he serves as an assistant registrar in the academics unit at MNLU Mumbai and also coordinates the Center for Research in Intellectual Property. Additionally, he is a member of the Board of Studies at Mullen College of Commerce, Mumbai, and an associate editor for the MNLU Mumbai Law Review. He is a valuable member of the course development team for criminal justice and human rights. Notably, our speaker is the founder of LawLex, a legal education and research organization, further underlining his dedication to advanced legal knowledge and scholarship. We are privileged to have such a distinguished and multi-talented speaker guide us through the intricacies of sports and intellectual property law in this course. So we are happy to welcome you, sir. You may begin your session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Subramaniam ji, for this kind introduction. All right, participants, a very good evening to all of you. Earlier, sports was a recreational activity, a pastime, and it was limited to that only. But gradually, it has become an industry. Lot of commercials are involved. Lot of stakes are there. Lot of emotions are also associated with the sports industry. And sports has become nowadays a multi-billion dollar global industry. And it has created a lot of jobs, lot of workforce is involved in management of the sports, with respect to participation in the sports, and also other sectors, for example production of certain products, devices, etc., which are required for this very industry to prosper. Now, before talking about this very interface between intellectual property and sports, I want to talk about what is intellectual property. From the terminology itself, intellectual property is creation of human mind. Okay, it is the property which we create by application of human intellect. It is an intangible property, which means that it doesn't have any physical form. It cannot be measured as such. We talk about literary works, of course, with respect to the sports industry. I'll share many examples with you. But when we talk about books, okay, books, the content which is there in the books is a kind of an intellectual property. The trademarks are kind of intellectual property. Inventions are also types of intellectual property. Now the next question comes, because we are living in this very knowledge driven economy, and we feel that knowledge should be free, it should be shared with each other. Then the question comes, why intellectual property should be protected? Why there is so much of a fuss about intellectual property? Because, if, for example, if we read an article and if we are barred by nowadays some paywall, you frown about it. You think, see, why this knowledge is kept limited from me, kept away from me? Why I have to pay for something? Okay, this is a common thought process. But dear friends, if we have to, in order to understand why intellectual property needs protection, we have to discuss some of the theories. I'll have a glance at some of the theories like utilitarian theory, which you might have heard, was given by Jeremy Bentham, who says that we should protect something if it leads to the greater good of greater number. If we think about intellectual property, if we some books come into the market, we feel happy about it. If an invention is there in the market, we feel happy about it. We are ready to shell more money for like iPhone 14, iPhone 15, maybe 16 will come, then again we'll be ready to shell that much money. And somehow the welfare also happens in the society, which is the whole aim of this very utilitarian theory. And that is why IP also satisfies that very criteria, and it should be protected. There is a labor theory. See, whatever we do as a creator, if I write something, if someone has created a product upon which some logo is there, someone has designed a t-shirt, it is the intellectual labor. Okay. And some philosophers like John Locke, they have vociferously talked about this very theory, and they've said that if someone invests his labor upon something which is available freely, then that very person should reap the benefits, should get the proprietorship over that very property. Okay, so the labor theory also satisfies this very criteria of which is their intellectual property also fulfills that, and therefore we can say that IP should be protected. And when we talk about personality theory, which has been laid down by scholars like Immanuel Kant and Hegel, okay, so they say that whenever we create something, if for example a painter is painting and so a lyricist is writing a song, a story writer is writing a story, what is happening is that we are putting a part of our personality into that very work. And who will own, for example, it is me who will own a part of my personality. Only I will own the part of my personality, isn't it? So therefore, who should get the right over that very painting or that very story? Since it is the part of my personality, I should get the credit of that. I should get the ownership of that. And that is why, because it is something which is inherently mine, IP should be protected. And thereafter, when we talk about another theory which has been laid down in the recent writings of Professor William Fisher, he has talked about this very theory, and he says that IP helps in the creation of a just and attractive culture in the society. Now, what is this just and attractive culture in the society? It means that intellectual property is making the society better. How it is making the society better? For example, during COVID-19, what was happening? Why inventions were happening with respect to COVID-19 vaccines? Why innovations, a lot of innovations were happening with respect to, what we say, some cure related to COVID-19. You must have seen a lot of work is done in the field of anti-cancer drug. Every month, new mobile phones are coming to the market. Okay, so it is helping. See, people want their ailments to be cured. Isn't that making the society better? We all want luxurious things in our kitchen. Okay, we would like a beautiful looking tea set in our kitchen, a beautiful vase. We would want a beautiful pen. So and even we would like to read better novels. Okay, so that is why intellectual property responds to the demand in the society and therefore makes the society better. If something is making the society better, it should be protected. Because if in a nutshell I would say that if we will not protect intellectual property, then the innovation climate in the country will totally go down. If I say that you write an article and give it to me, I'll publish it in my name, will you do it? Of course, no. People will think that no, it is better not to do anything uh, rather than to give credit to someone else about this, rather than giving someone else the opportunity to make money, not me. Okay, so the incentive, the innovative climate of the country will go down if innovations are not protected, if intellectual property is not protected. So that is why when we talk about intellectual property is a kind of an incentive. Okay, be it what we'll talk about those protections, whatever these types of intellectual properties are, these are the exclusive rights which have been granted by the government to the creator for their creations. And when this exclusive right is granted by the government, it is an incentive being given by the government, and this incentive can be monopolized, it can be monetized, it can be commercialized in many forms, which we'll be talking about henceforth. So incentives are there, rewards are there, innovations, when innovations happen in the society, a lot of new things we get, it creates a kind of a creative atmosphere. And also one more thing, we get to know about existence of certain things. If there would not be any kind of protection, then no one would disclose their invention to any other person. No one would publish any storybook. They'll say, okay, it is my book, I'll read it, maybe my children will read it, I'll keep that very knowledge to myself. The reason that people are free to share the knowledge with the world is only because they know that yes, a law, intellectual property law exists, which will protect their work. And of course, if such protection is there, human progress will also happen. So let us come to now sports, and with the examples of sports, we'll talk about the various types of intellectual property rights also. Now, when I say that sports has now become a highly commercial industry, there are a lot of associations which are coming up. Every district, every tehsil, every state, they have their own associations. Okay, lot of team leagues, they are emerging in India. Pro Kabaddi, IPL, earlier only World Cup was there. Now IPL is also there, T20 is there, Indian Super League is there, Badminton Premier League is there, Hockey India League is there. So, these are becoming highly managed affairs, uh, taking a drift from that way. Of course, sports is always considered to be as a recreational kind of an activity, but when a lot of stakes are involved, it is a highly commercial activity nowadays. And innovation and creativity, they are very important in the world of sports, as well as certain examples about sectors like pharmaceutical sector, education sector, which I just gave to you. So it is these, the IP and sports are also greatly linked to each other in every sporting field. When we watch a cricket match which is being broadcasted, when we wear a merchandise, wear a jersey, when even in order to conduct those very matches, lot of money has to be generated, investment has to be gathered. This is happening because of the intellectual properties which are associated with these very sports. Okay, it is helping athletes also, it is helping the common people also. When you purchase India's jersey, you feel motivated, you feel so patriotic that yes, you are supporting your team. Okay, so a lot of benefits are there with the amalgamation of sports and intellectual property. Now let us talk about what are the types of intellectual property which are associated in general and particularly with the sports industry. Now copyrights are there. What is copyright? Copyright protects original artistic work, literary work, dramatic work. It also protects cinematograph films, movies. When we talk about broadcast of a cricket match or any other match, there is a copyright associated with it. Okay, so copyright, it will, of course, when right is there, it is not a single right. These are bundles of rights, wherein you have the right to license, you have the right to do reproduce, right to give on hire. Okay, so right to manufacture. These bundle of rights are there, along with a right which is called as moral right. Moral right is the right of attribution. If I have written something, if I have designed something, it is my work. Okay, that is the moral right. So moral rights as well as a lot of financial rights are associated with copyright. So in nutshell, I'll again say, whatever images are there, images, photographs, broadcasts, audio, visual, video films, sounds, music, this is protected by virtue of copyright. Now, trademark. Trademark, when we talk about trademark, trademark is a sign or a symbol which helps in the distinguishing the products or goods of one person or services of one person from goods or services of the another person. Okay, and so it is, in a simple example, if I'll ask you, there was a survey which was done by one organization, I'm not able to recall. They showed the ICC World Cup to a lot of people. Many World Cups they showed, FIFA World Cup, and many other leagues also conduct World Cups. But they found that ICC World Cup is the most recognized World Cup. Okay, and that World Cup is a protected and registered trademark. Okay, so what is it doing? It is helping to distinguish goods or services of one person from the goods or services of another person. If you purchase a pen, you'll find, okay, logo is there, Luxor. It is of company Luxor. Star Sports, of course, it's a proprietary mark of Star India Limited. All right, so trademarks helping us in that very manner. You'll see that many of the like cricketer, for example, this SRT is a trademark. Whose name is it? Sachin Ramesh Tendulkar. Many sports athletes as well as cricketers and other sports persons, they have registered their names as trademark. Okay, so usually you'll find trademarks on products. ICC, International Cricket Council, BCCI, and other leagues, they have their own trademarks. And even IPL teams, Kolkata Knight Riders, I was reading it somewhere, they have largest trademarks are associated with Kolkata Knight Riders, and it was amounting to around 300. Largest in IPL team. So when you see the cricket jersey, you'll find Dream 11. You'll immediately recall, okay, Dream 11 is what? It's a e-gaming platform. You'll find Adidas logo. Adidas, it produces sports merchandise, okay, clothing brand, footwear brand. So therefore, trademarks are also very, very important here. Patents are granted to inventions which satisfy three criteria under the Patent Act of 1970. One criteria is of novelty, that is, the invention should be new, the product or process should be new. The second criteria is that inventive step should be there. It means that it should be a new kind of a technical solution to the existing problem, or a highly economic solution to an existing problem, and it should not be obvious to the people who are well versed in that very industry. If that is the second criteria on which an invention will get a patent. And the third criteria is about utility, or we also call it as capable of industrial application. Means it should be able to be reproduced. Okay, if I say I have a time machine banadi and I'm not able to reproduce it again, it might be my dream only. So I cannot call it my innovation, and I cannot patent it, because I'm not, I if something happens just by chance, I cannot patent it until unless I'm able to reproduce that product or process. Now, in the sports industry, of course, I have certain examples for you in the later part of my slides. But briefly, I'll tell you. Um, there are you know devices to record the speed of the ball, the angle of the ball, and whether the ball has touched the wicket. You must have heard this in news earlier. What used to happen, I think it was Sourav Ganguly. The habit of Sourav Ganguly was, whenever he used to win a cricket match, he used to take the stumps with him. But nowadays it is not allowed. And when the shift was made from normal wicket stumps to electric wickets, then many a times Sourav Ganguly was stopped, and they said, sorry, you cannot take this. He removed also many a times, but he was stopped that, see, it's very, very costly. I think it is in lakhs of rupees. So it is not allowed. So that is patent. Okay. Innovations are happening. We are, nowadays, live match, we are able to see a lot of data. Okay, so that is because of the inventions which are there, innovations which are there, maybe in the cricket bats, maybe in the other paraphernalia which the sports persons are wearing. We'll talk more about it. And designs are there, of course. Designs, be it the clothing design, be it the footwear design. Okay, so design protects the aesthetic appearance, the ornamentation. Okay, how a particular product looks, that looks, because as I said earlier, we want beautiful looking products at our homes. That desire of ours for beauty, for uniqueness, is protected, is commercialized and monopolized by industrial designs. Okay, so the designs are there. I've told you, designs are applied on an article. It can be in the form of a shape, it can be two-dimensional, as because I said, like t-shirts, they can be printing on it. Combination of line can be combination of colors. Okay, so the merchandise which we see is protected by virtue of designs. Briefly, copyright is protected for a period of life of the author plus 60 years. Trademark is a perpetual right, means every 10 years it can be renewed. I'm saying it can be renewed, but only it has to be in use, and fee etc is there. So initially 10 years protection is there, then again it has to be renewed. uh, it is not mandatory to register copyright, it is not mandatory to register trademark, but both are always advisable to be registered, because now we are dealing with a highly commercial commodity, commercial property, and no one would like to rest their case for just mere investigation showing that I produce it first. Okay, see movies, these broadcasting rights are given to companies in crores of rupees. It is not so cheap. Okay, so that is why it is always advisable that it be registered. Now patents are there for only a period of 20 years from the date of filing. It cannot be renewed again. Okay, and designs are there for a period of 10 years, which can be extended for 5 more years. It means 10 years plus 5 more years are there. And definitely one more kind of an IP is associated, that is trade secrets. Okay, there are certain business practices which a company might be having, that they may not like to reveal it, they may not like to share it with anyone, and that can be protected by virtue of non-disclosure agreements. You might have, many of you are in academic sphere. You might have interned somewhere. You might be working with some organization. You might have signed certain non-disclosure agreements, NDAs we call it. These are contracts, and within the contract there are certain terms like you cannot reveal the information of this very company with someone else. All right, so those are the secrets. Okay, and these are commercial secrets. If the commercial secret is revealed, then again the another company will have some unfair advantage. Now this image or this slide sums it all. We have one big misconception. Okay, that misconception is that one product will be associated with only one intellectual property. Answer is no. One product can be associated with multiple IPs. Okay, I have taken this very examples from the website of World Intellectual Property Organization, wherein this very shoe is shown. Now I'll tell you what all IPs will be there in this. Patent may protect this the material of this very shoe. Okay, patent will protect the material of this very shoe. This zigzag lines or this the pattern which is there, it might have some functionality also. Maybe it enables, because there are shoes, I'll tell you, I have an example also. There are shoes which can enhance the speed, the running speed of a person. That technology can be protected. That technology can exist in a shoe, and it has to be protected by patents. The look of this very shoe is protected under the design law. Then trademarks, you can easily recall. For how can you tell what trademark of what brand, because trademarks are essentially brands only, na? This is brand Nike. How can we know? Because the stick mark is the logo of Nike. So trademark is also associated with it. Okay, then you might have seen a lot of advertisements. Okay, there'll be a box on which this some imagery will be there. There will be an deal with a sports star, okay, wearing Nike shoes. Okay, so those things, those advertisement materials and artwork, audiovisual creation which are used to publicize this very shoe, they will be protected by copyright. So in one example, we are able to understand that one product may contain multiple IPs. Okay, then there are broadcasting and media rights also, because I'll tell you one thing. Earlier what used to happen, we watch news. Okay, there is a concept of fair use under copyright law. Fair use means that for the purpose of research, for the purpose of review, for the purpose of criticism, and for the purpose of news, okay, you can use somebody else's material without seeking license or without seeking permission from that very person. Because you might see a book review which might be available on the newspaper. Do you think the person has sought permission from that very author to write that very book review? Of course no. Okay, and news is telecasted on the TV, and for that permission is there. You'll see the words which are used: courtesy. Okay, courtesy. Now what's used to happen was that these news channels used to show live clippings of a cricket match or certain other matches for which the broadcasting rights had been sold to some other organization. It means that some organization was paying crores of rupees for these very broadcasting rights, and these news channels, under the garb of publishing news, they were showing live feeds. So court put a halt on it and they said, sorry, it cannot be shown live. There has to be some delay because these otherwise it will be, it will jeopardize the interests of that very broadcasting organization. Okay, but again, broadcasting is there. The rights can be taken. It is the broadcasting rights can be protected. They are protected under copyright law for a period of 25 years. And again, there is a statutory broadcasting license also, which can be sought for the events which already have been published in the public domain. Now, licenses and sponsorships in sport is a huge way of sharing the revenue, gaining the revenue. How it happens? Because I told you about all these very rights. Okay, I might be the writer, I might be the owner of a particular intellectual property, but how will I make money? I will make money by these license deals. Okay, so I can raise sponsorships. For example, this I just gave the example of World Cup. The Adidas, you'll find Adidas logo, you'll find Dream 11 logo. They have paid crores of rupees, for this license. Okay, they have licensed, and because of that very license, their logo is there on that very jersey. You'll go on the Adidas website, you'll see that they are selling jersey. Okay, they have that very cross license. Okay, it can happen at a very small level also, and a very very high level also, at the league sports like ICC, certain other competitions, certain other sports. It can be there like at FIFA. Okay, you can see the image might appear to be a bit blur, but this is talking about Vivo IPL earlier. When Vivo had taken the sponsorship of IPL, Vivo had again paid a lot of money for this, and certain other brands were also there. Samsung, like I think this Mumbai Indians is there, HP, Nokia, many brands. So they do this sponsorship deals. Some are title sponsors. Vivo was the title sponsor. Now Dream 11 is the title sponsor. At one point of time, the government is talking about regulating or over regulating esports or betting. On the other hand, Dream 11 is sponsoring the Indian cricket team. So anyhow, that is a matter of future debate. But title sponsors, main sponsors, official sponsor, official partner, technical partners, many partnerships are there. Just on the circumference of the cricket ground, you will find a lot of banners there. Okay, if you recall long ago, on radio, ye hai BSNL choka. So it was sponsored by BSNL. Okay, aisa nahi that they just thought about BSNL to BSNL kar diya. No. So of course BSNL might have paid a lot of money at that very point of time when BSNL was doing very well. Now, when I said I talked about patent, so sports is not aloof from the technology. Okay, many manufacturer of sports equipment, they are into this innovation sphere. Okay, they do a lot of innovation, because I'll give example here again of this cricket jersey. Okay, it has been said that the fabric of that jersey is such that it is I think the word was thermo something, means it was able, it had cooling properties. Okay, so because athletes, they do lot of physical exercise, physical activity, when they participate in sports, a lot of heat might generate, sweat might generate. So you'll see that those very official jerseys, okay, there might be certain counterfeit jerseys also, I'm not talking about that, but those official jerseys will have some holes, etc. there. Okay, so cross ventilation, all these things may happen. Okay, so a lot of investment is done with respect to the improvement of the existing products. Okay, be it cricket bat, be it be it with the guards and other things which athletes wear, so that minimal injury should be there. Okay, uh, earlier what used to happen, the sports wear used to be very very heavy. Okay, now with new carbon fiber and many other kind of technologies and innovation, lot of improvements are happening, thereby minimizing injury. And you know certain medicines are also being promoted for fast recovery when there is an injury. You'll see all these helping people running around the doctors and paramedics. Whenever some injury happens, they'll spray something, do something. So all these are very very important for this very sector. Yes, this is the example of Batson's. This sensor weighs 25 grams. Okay, and just on the your screen on the right hand side, you might be able to see this very kind of a device which is there. So it records different kind of data like the bat speed, angle of bat lift, and what was the in what speed that very ball impacted the bat. All these things immediately live data you can get. Okay, because Bluetooth and other technologies are there. So these are used for performance enhancement. I've given here in the Champions Trophy England 2017, this bat sense for you was used for the first time. Okay, another example is of a suit which is called as LZR racer suit. Okay, it was used in for the first time in Beijing Olympics. Okay, and it was seen that there was 94% of all the swimming races, okay, were won wearing this very suit. Like in like 10 people are there in using this LZR racer suit, 9 won. Okay, so such was the performance enhancement by wearing this very suit. Okay, because of course a lot of it deals with physics. Okay, how steadily it allows the water to go away. It might be having certain hydrophobic property, who knows. Okay, so and again there was this the organization who was organizing these competitions. Later on in thereafter many competition, there was a ban on use of these very swimming suits. Now this branding, it is there. It increases the sales by appealing to the aspirations and emotions of the sports fan. Oppo, if Oppo name is there on the Indian jersey, we think Oppo is a very good company because we are emotionally connected to Indian team, for example. So we may this way might help in increasing the sales. Okay, because all these things give a lot of visibility. See, right now, what is the talk of the town? Talk of the town is World Cup, and therefore Adidas and Dream 11, they are number one. Okay, so it happens like this, and so a lot of yes, this on the right of my screen is, I am sure you people can recall with this very lightning bolt pose of Usain Bolt. Okay, so he got a trademark of this. Okay, a device mark of this, and he also got a slogan mark to the world. Okay, so that is there. Sachin Tendulkar, I've told you, and all these very people, they have trademarked their names. Okay, lot of publicity rights are also associated with the players nowadays. And I'll tell you, what happens. Recently, you might have heard Amitabh Bachchan has uh, has got a John Doe order from the court. that no one can use his voice, no one can use his image without his permission. Earlier, I'll just share not a sports case, but otherwise, there was a case wherein that Amitabh Bachchan has a unique kind of a baritone voice, okay, and lot of mimicry happens, using his kind of baritone voice. But so what happened? A gutka brand, use this kind of a baritone voice, and people started thinking that Amitabh Bachchan is promoting this very gutka. Okay, nowadays there are some film stars who are doing it, of course, their choice, but people wrongly related Amitabh Bachchan to that very good car. Anyhow, he won that very case. Again, another case is there with respect to Amitabh Bachchan. Again, Amitabh Bachchan and Ram Kumar Jewellers, because without permission they had used his image and all. So people thought that yes, Amitabh Bachchan is promoting this very brand. Okay, when people promote certain brands, when a lot of ads are there, people start believing those very people and those very brands, because of those people, the film stars or the athletes or the sports persons which are associated. There was an ad of Boost, okay, wherein Sachin Tendulkar was there, so it grew the sales of Boost. It is like Horlicks, that kind of a powder. It increased the sales by many fold, because people thought that, see, Sachin is such a good sports person. If this very person is doing it, if using it, of course we should always do it. But sometimes somehow wrong associations may have also happened. There was a person, Gautam Gambhir, Havalat Lounge and Bar by Gautam Gambhir. Of course, the other person name was also, but it was not this Gautam Gambhir, someone else was there. So people might have some kind of misconception also that may happen. Now, this is the example. Of course, it is a bit old example, but you can just relate it. Okay. So the IPL global media rights, they were for IPL, they were awarded to Star India for 16,347 crores between the period of 2018 to 2022. Okay, and like Oppo also became, so Oppo got these rights for a 5-year period for 1079 crore rupees. The point is that so much of financial involvement is there with respect to the intellectual property rights with respect to sports. Okay, so there is a case related to Star India versus Priyank Suheja. So what happened? Nowadays, you cannot showcase a live cricket match in a bar. Okay, you have to seek separate permission, or you have to take a commercial subscription. Okay, so we cannot, any commercial organization cannot do such a gathering, which was held in this very case. Okay, whether there is a copyright over score, a case was there wherein Crickbuzz, what they used to do, ball by ball score they used to showcase. Again, lot of judgments are there in this regard. One judgment was there that only after 15-minute lag it can be shared, but yes, if there is a newsworthy information, it can be shared instantaneously. For example, I'm a news house, I just got the information India won the cricket match. Immediately it can be showcased that yes, India won the cricket match. Okay, these things are there. So performers rights are also there, but again, there is a question mark with respect to it. We have performers rights with respect to dramas, with respect to films. Okay, but there is still a question. The question came with respect to ice skating. Ice skating, see, dance is a work of choreography, and it can be protected under copyright, okay, because there are certain steps and everything is involved. So it was said that this ice skating, there is also set pattern, is kind of a dance, okay. But anyhow, it could not be protected because it was said that the outcome is unscripted and uncertain, okay. Any second you might slip there, you might go there, okay. So it is unscripted and uncertain, therefore you cannot get a performer right over it, okay. uh of course, infringement cannot be done of these very marks, okay. There is a punishment which is associated with the violation of any of these very rights. Punishments are given under the Trademarks Act, Patents Act, Copyright Act, Design Act, and punishment are ranging from 6 months to 3 years, and fine is there from 50,000 rupees to 2 lakh rupees, okay. So those punishments, all these things are there, and definitely apart from these very punishments, there are the other civil remedies also, like injunctions are there. Injunction means an order to stop use of that very infringing, I think, either product or logo or copyright. All these things are available. Now there is a concept called as ambush marketing. Ambush marketing happens when someone, you know you know just like that, enter into an environment and promotes his brand even though that organization is not the official sponsor, okay. Now how it happens, with examples I'll show you. Like in London 2012 Olympic Games, so of course Nike did not was not the official the sponsor of this London Olympic Games. But what happened, Nike launched this very Find Your Greatness campaign, okay. It had a lot of regular individuals doing all manner of sports and activities, and it was filmed in various locations, like London and other places also. So what happened, people used to think that yes, Nike is the official sponsor of London 2012 Olympic Games. So what has happened, for a price of a penny, they are able to do ambush marketing, thereby creating an impression in the mind of the people that yes, London 2012 Olympic Games has sponsorship of Nike, okay. So similarly, this Puma used Usain Bolt, okay, and used the photo of shoes of Usain Bolt, and therefore there was a conception in the mind of people that this sponsorship is by Puma of that Rio Olympic Games, which actually was not there. This is with picture I can show you. Here Jio is not the official sponsor of Indian Premier League match of 2017, okay. So what happened, Jio purchased the tickets, seats, and so Jio purchased this very tickets and gave T-shirts to the people so that it spelled out Jio. Okay, this was a kind of a this ambush marketing. So this is again another example of ambush marketing, wherein this was 2010 World Cup in South Africa. There was a beer company, Bravia. Okay, Bravia sent 36 women to attend that very match in the Bravia costume, okay. These costumes had Bravia logo also, and at specific intervals they used to stand up, okay, and they gathered a lot of attention, and people thought that, oh, Bravia got a lot of fame because of it. That is free of cost. Otherwise, there were other sponsors paying crores, millions, and billions of rupees or dollars for this kind of an activity. Okay, but somehow these people were thrown out when the organizers found about it. But if, of course, they got their substantial 5 minutes or 15 minutes of fame, whatever was there. So brands do a lot of sponsorships, associations. For example, Royal Challenge is there. Of course, it's not a sports drink, which is written here again because advertising policies, they have to be written in this very manner. You'll find Kingfisher's sparkling water. Okay, these ads, Carlsberg glasses. So these things are there. But anyhow, I'm talking here about the association of Royal Challenge, okay, Royal Challenge with certain women cricket match without becoming a sponsor of that very cricket match, just by asking, maybe paying some of these very sports persons to promote their very brand. The kind of an idea comes to the mind of the people that yes, this Royal Challenge might be sponsoring that very organization. Okay, so I'm just about to conclude. I have one very good example of Ariel. Okay, so what happened? So it was in, I think, 2019. What happened? Ariel started a campaign. Okay, 2011 dobara. Now again, ICC, they have a very strict kind of policy of what is permitted thing, what is not permitted thing with respect to the use of ICC. Okay, ICC World Cup or its imagery. So what they did, so they said 2011 dobara. So what people thought that Ariel is officially sponsoring World Cup of, it was 2019. Okay, so in that kind of thing, a lot of campaigning happened. You can see here, another example is here. So people were wearing jersey of Indian team, but it was not the original jersey of the ICC. Okay, it was a blue kind of a jersey with only India written. Everyone can do it. Everyone can create that kind of a jersey, but you cannot have a jersey having the logo of the sponsors. Okay, so they did it like this, and again they did partnerships with people like Virendra Sehwag and all. So somehow people thought that yes, with lesser money they were able to create a misconception in the minds of the people that yes, Ariel India is official partner of World Cup, which was not the case. But is it legal? It is not ethical, but it is purely legal. What they have to do, see, World Cup is a generic term. FIFA World Cup, ICC World Cup, many World Cups can be there. They used World Cup. Here they can use. They never used ICC here. See all this very material here. They have not used ICC. Okay, so whatever these other sponsors, promoters are also writing, they are not writing about ICC World Cup. So this is the video ad, 2011 World Cup final, Cricket World Cup final. They are not saying whose World Cup, but again, a perception is being created in the mind of the people. So this is what I was talking about earlier in my discussion. You can see the new kind of logo which is there. Adidas logo is there, Dream 11 logo is there, and of the official logo of the BCCI and the ICC World Cup. And again, some new things are there in the jerseys, that tricolor stripes are there. Okay, so in nutshell, intellectual property rights, they have a huge and a very important role in association with the sports. And I think with the popularity of these very brands, okay, the sports industry has also gained a lot of momentum, right? And there is because of these very associations of these very brands, a lot of investments these leagues are able to gather, okay, and these leagues are paying, like Ronaldo, Messi, and other people. They are paying they're getting a huge lot of money, okay. It cannot only be gathered just because of you know just because of the a match or a competition, but a lot of emotion, they play with the emotions, lot of things are there, okay. So that has to be remembered all the time. So this is it from my side. Definitely I'm open for questions, whatever are there. I'll try to respond. Dear participants, if you have questions, please feel free to ask, put it in the chat.
Participants are requested to unmute themselves. If you have any
I can
questions,
see. Yeah. I can see one question. What are the consequences for the brands that carry out this ambush marketing? Legally speaking, not much can be done. Okay. Not much can be done because, yes, what can be done is that those people who are indulging into that, they can be thrown out of the stadium. Um, so that is it, okay. But of course, people who are, or organizations who are doing this ambush marketing, they are walking on a very thin rope, okay. Thin rope is infringement, not infringement. They have to be very particular that they do not infringe anything, otherwise the cost would be so much, the compensation would be so much, it will be difficult for them to bear. Okay.
Hi, so my
Yes, please.
Bhavishya here. My question is about the uh, the thing you said about the dance competition in the skating. So
Mm-hmm.
मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि क्या like when you said कि like the athlete can't get the performance right since this uh, क्योंकि उसमें आउटकम
Because it is
आउटकम
not, see,
पॉसिबल नहीं है
it is
हाँ
not a fixed kind of a performance. Okay.
yes there is
हाँ.
no it's unscripted and outcome नहीं आ सकता but if the athlete gets 10 out of 10 then can he get the performance right and if there is like कोई गिरता नहीं कुछ नहीं can then the athlete can get the performance right
No. They cannot get, because every time there will be some minor variation. Okay. But now we used to say na, Harbhajan ka spinner. Okay. We have seen in some countries such athletes have got rights over their the way of moving, all these things, but in India the jurisprudence is not available or is not supportive of such a thing.
what about internationally in other
Yes,
countries is it
yes, in
possible
other countries I have seen, they have got copyright. Okay, they have got copyright.
Sir, for ambush marketing, can there be law of torts that can be resorted to, especially deceit?
Yes, sport industry may a lot of things are there, but again, deceit, it is very difficult to show malice. Okay, it is very difficult to show malice.
But malice is not an integral part of law of torts, as far as my understanding goes.
No, you see, right, of course, we say that motive, etc., is not required. Okay, but again, when we talk about deceit, okay, uh, then there should be some intention. Okay, so it is very, very difficult in the sense, because what activity they are doing is lawful. They are lawfully entering inside. Okay, and this is not for the one time this is happening. Every time these things happen, you will find a lot of organizations selling t-shirts with their company logo outside the stadium of the cricket match. This happens all the time. It might be possible. I have not come across that very case wherein it has been considered as deceit. But yes, in the Bravia case, of course, two people were arrested also. But again, the reason for arrest was nuisance and other things. Okay, because they were standing again and again, causing inconvenience to other people. So I think when we talk about deceit, we have to find out what are the ingredients of deceit that has to be seen.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Anybody else who wants to uh, ask by unmuting yourself? Or
There is
the
a
questions from the
question.
chat box.
Can you give your thoughts on fair sport, fair competition, and access to IP-based sports products? A lot of sports products are there. Cricket cricket bats are there. Shoes are there. So these are normal, fairly allowed. Okay, you can wear of any brand. Again, it should be a particular color. There are sponsors who are sponsoring what we can say certain sweatwear also, है ना? So all these things can be done. But with respect to geographical, okay, wait, somehow some question was there. One question is of geographical indication. See, geographical indication, when we say, it talks about a good which has attained a reputation or quality because of its geographical location. Okay, so it is difficult to associate GI with that ICC industry, but yes, the people who are owners of that very GI, they can collaborate with these sports leagues, and of course they have to pay some money. Of course, in return their brand will also grow. Those things are possible, but I have not come across a relation wherein some GI company they have collaborated with these sport leagues.
Good evening, sir. My question to you is regarding the broadcasting rights that we were talking about, that these restaurants and cafes, they are not allowed to broadcast the cricket matches without any permissions or licenses. But as we see, especially in metropolitan cities, it is a very common practice that happens, especially during any of the leagues or World Cups that is happening. So are there any kind of punishments or deterioratory measures that are in place for such restaurants that are broadcasting these
Definitely,
matches?
it will fall under corporate infringement, wherein I've told you 6 months to up to 2 years punishment is there, fine is there, all these things are there. So only point there is that uh, restaurants and bars and pubs, they have some cover charge also. There is a judgment which says that if there is an organization which is charging over and above the product, okay, for example, you have tea, but they are keeping the price very high, it means they are earning. So for that, they have to get a commercial license. I'm not saying broadcast license. They have to get a commercial license of that very, maybe from Dish TV they will get a commercial license, or from Tata Sky they will get commercial license. Okay, that kind of licensing is required. There is no need, because they are not broadcasting. Broadcast means over a satellite signal. They're just showing it to a group of 50 people. Okay, for that only commercial license of that very TV channel subscription is required. Okay, hotels and all, they have to get commercial subscriptions, which are of course a bit pricey.
I would like to uh, thank you so much, Mr. Sajid Sheikh, for a captivating lecture on sports and intellectual property law. Uh, you have delved into the intricate intersections of IP rights with performance rights, media and broadcasting rights, trademark protection for sports products, and the engaging topic of ambush marketing, illustrated by intriguing examples like Ariel's World Cup campaign and Geo's ambush marketing, in which the thunder of Vodafone was stolen by Geo, and your insights have added depth to our understanding of sports law, and we appreciate your valuable contributions. So thank you so much, Professor Sajid Sheikh, for a truly engaging and enlightening session for us today.
Thank you so much, Subramaniam sir, and thank you all the participants for actively listening and for sharing questions. I would be very happy if some more questions are there. You put that in the feedback form, as Subramaniam sir has said, and definitely at leisure I can respond to it. And thank you all once again.